I'm sorry, Westborough TV, are you ready? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the April 6th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. As is customary in this day and age, I have to read the governor's order into the record first, so bear with me. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191 or live streamed online at westboroughTV.org. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. That being said, my name is Mark Silverberg. For those of you who are new to this, thank you for joining us. I'm going to run through the town's policy on Zoom participation, and I'll ask Kristen to bring that up. Kristen, do you want me to just read it from mine?
Yes, if you could just read it. It's not an official document.
So, okay. I thought it was an official town policy. But regardless, there is a protocol to be observed tonight for public hearings, and I would ask everybody to be patient. We will attempt to, we will hear everybody's concerns before the night is over, but I would like to maintain a civil discourse and no interruptions, and please stay muted. So I am the chair, and I will introduce each speaker on the agenda, and then I will recognize each speaker afterward. After they conclude their remarks, I'll go down, I'll address the planning board and give everyone on the planning board a chance to comment or ask questions. Then once the planning board has exhausted our questions, I'll turn to the public for commentary and questions. Please raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand feature, which is down at the bottom of the screen under the participants tab. If you don't know how to do that, just wave your hand on the screen vigorously and I'll try to acknowledge you that way. But hopefully we can use that raise hand feature and I will get to you as soon as I can. So we'll turn to the first item on the agenda, which is really some bookkeeping stuff. We have to look at our future meeting dates, in particular our next meeting, which is April 20th. That is also school vacation week. And I just wanted to check with the board regarding their schedule, because I understand that some of our applicants may have a difficult time making that week. And I actually will be away that week as well. Fortunately, in the Zoom era, I may be able to join the meeting, but it would be easier for me, and presumably for the applicants, to push that meeting back to April 27th. I mean, I would just like to hear from the board to see if they're able to make that date. So why don't we start with Jim Ball? Are you around on the 27th?
Mark, I can make that date.
Okay, Peter?
I can make that date.
Okay, yeah, I heard that, Jim. Thank you.
Yes, Mark, the 27th works for me.
Okay, Hazel?
Yep, it's fine.
Okay. And Kayla, are you able to do the 27th?
Yes, Mark.
Okay. Jim Robbins, are you able to do the 27th?
Yes,
Okay. Do we need to vote to move that meeting or just?
no.
No.
No, you do
So
not
we'll-
need a vote, the consensus of the board.
All right, then we'll move the April 20th meeting to April 27th at 6:30. All right. Next item on the agenda is a review and consideration of the preliminary subdivision plan for rugged trails at 228 Ruggles Street. Kristen, I believe you have a letter from the applicant requesting an extension. Do I need to read this into the record, Jim?
Yes, please do.
Okay, so I have a letter dated April 1st, 2021, to address to the Town of Westborough Planning Board from Karen Keegan, the engineering coordinator for Guaranteed Builders and Developers. Dear Planning Board members, we would like to request an extension to allow the Planning Board to extend the preliminary meeting hearing period to May 6, 2021, to allow time to review and enter a decision regarding the Rugged Trails preliminary subdivision, and that's at 228 Ruggles Street. Any questions from the board on that? Jim Robbins, any comments?
Is there anyone from the project team? Is Karen here?
She is.
Can I just ask, we've got an awful lot of adjournments on this. Is this going to go on indefinitely? I mean, there does come a point where I think continuing to adjourn this is really not a benefit to the community or to the planning board.
It should be resolved for the preliminary plan before May 6th.
Yeah, I think COVID was a factor in this as well, Hazel, so I think we should exercise some patience here. All right,
Would you like me to pull up the lotting plan, Karen?
I did submit that lotting plan to you. We're still waiting for Fred's letter. And I'm still waiting for, and once we get Fred's letter, I want to be able to move forward with the profile plan and whatever else we need to have in place to get the preliminary moving forward, approved, and move into subdivision, definitive plan. So I did submit that lotting plan to Kristen. She did forward it to Fred, but we have not heard back.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, I don't hear any questions from the board. So Jim Robbins, this is not a public hearing, so we can move straight to a vote.
Yes, you need to, the board does, however, have to vote to grant the request for the extension.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to grant an extension on 228 Ruggles Street, the preliminary subdivision plan for Rugged Trails through May 6th, through the end of the day, 6/2021.
I second that.
Peter, I heard Peter Bouchard second. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor, I have to do a roll call vote. So Jim Ball, how do you vote?
Yes, Mark.
Hazel Nurse,
Yes, to extend.
Peter Bouchard,
Yes, to extend.
Tim Kaler.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor of extending.
And we can continue this meeting until the 27th. Can I be on that agenda also?
Yeah, we'll put you on the agenda for the 27th in hopes that you'll be ready at that point. Thank you,
Okay.
Ken.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Pulte Homes Del Webb project gas service relocation. I'm going to turn to Jim Robbins for a summary of the issue. I think we had some information come out to us already, but I think Jim can summarize it for you and for the public. Jim
Sure,
Robbins,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Silverberg. As you know, we discussed this at a previous meeting informally. Pulte Homes had planned to bring gas to the site by Lyman Street. As a matter of fact, the first two residential buildings in the clubhouse are served by the existing gas line in Lyman Street. The approved site plan showed the gas line entering into the site from Lyman Street. The intention was to improve that gas line to accommodate the additional pressure they needed for the remainder of the project, the remaining 12 residential buildings. However, on engineering design of the gas line, as the line approaches Lyman Street, there are many public utilities in Lyman Street that would be in conflict of moving the existing gas line. So alternatives were investigated. There is no gas on Haskell Street currently. The gas line ends at Brickyard Lane, intersecting with Haskell Street. The proposal is to bring a new 60 PSI residential gas line down the remainder of Haskell Street from Brickyard Lane to Lyman Street to join the project site off of Lyman Street. It's a new location for the gas line. However, originally in the original special permit, the planning board knew that there was gas to serve the project. This is a better location for the improved gas line than Lyman Street. The change is only minor. It's a minor modification to the special permit. It's not an increase in the number of units. It's not a change in the roadway. So it is my recommendation that this proposed relocation of the gas line be considered de minimis change, because the project element was always there. It's now going to be in a different location. And the project manager, Mark Mastriani from Pulte Homes, is here with us this evening, and a representative from Eversource Gas as well.
Okay. Mark, do you have any comments for the board?
Good evening, Chairman Silverberg. I do not have anything to add. I think Jim Robbins did a very nice job giving the overview. And, again, Frank Giampa from the gas company is here and is certainly able to answer any questions as well that the board may have.
Okay, well, thank you for making yourself available. Let's turn to the board then and hear any questions. Jim Ball, do you have anything?
I would only comment that I would prefer this route.
Hazel, do you have any comments?
No, I agree. I think it'd be less disruptive, because trying to put something in on Lyman Street is very disruptive. And I realize the problem with the other utility lines there. So I think this is a better way to deal with this.
Peter, anything?
Yeah, I agree. This approach, not messing with Lyman Street and dealing with all those utilities and going through Haskell, makes a lot more sense. Less disruptance. So, yep, I agree.
And Tim, Kayla?
Yeah, I wanted to verify for the record. Jim Robbins could confirm this was a move the town requested. We've requested this change in routing.
So, I'm sorry. Yes, we did not request it, but we prefer this alternative. Initially, we had not done any design. It's not our gas line. It was the applicant's responsibility to provide the gas to the development. And on further examination, bringing it through Lyman Street would disrupt other public utilities and cause disruption to the intersection of 9 and Lyman. And as you know, that intersection was recently redesigned and repaved. I think it would be inappropriate to rip that up to install a new gas line. So the alternative was investigated, and I think this is a better alternative. Plus, it also provides opportunity for homes along Haskell Street, which are not currently serviced, to tie into gas service.
What is the length of the project? Estimated length?
Time-wise?
60 days. 60 days.
Okay.
And when will that commence, Jim?
May. You can ask the applicant. Eversource is here. They could give you a better idea.
Chairman,
Yeah, my concern with that is, we have a ball field along that stretch, and that's right in the middle of Little League season, softball season. I'm just concerned that will inhibit access to those fields.
So there will still be access along Haskell Street even during construction, because it will only disrupt one side of the roadway. they don't work 24 hours a day and the road won't remain open, it'll be plated. So when Little League is probably in session, the road work will not be in session. So there shouldn't be a conflict.
Okay, so what hours will they be working?
Can Eversource answer that, please?
Yeah. How you doing, Frank Champa? Thank you, Chairman. The hours most likely Monday through Friday would be 7:30 to 3:30. We'd be wrapped up and paved if we're in the pavement by 3:30.
Okay, that seems early enough to me, and it won't be on the weekends, right? That's what I
Nope.
heard. Okay.
Nope.
That seems early enough to me to avoid most practices. So, again, I'm not really sure how Little League and softball are proceeding this spring, but I don't want to inhibit any plans they have for that field. I had a couple other questions. Everybody along the street will get a letter from the gas company.
Correct.
Right?
We usually submit hardship letters to all the residents along the road that will be affected with the traffic, so they know that we'll be working out there, the duration, any issues, concerns, who to reach out to from Eversource or even our contractor, so we can resolve those issues. So that will be handed out to everybody in that neighborhood, in that area.
So Frank, this is kind of a sidetrack question, but in this day and age, it might be an expensive proposition to connect to the gas line for many people who've been, impacted by the virus. And I'm just wondering if there's any aid available, federal, state, or anything available to help people connect.
Yeah, we do have mass save programs out there through Eversource with 0% financing and all that stuff that our sales and marketing team, when we do market those 12 to 15 houses along that route that don't have gas, we would market that, provide all the information that they need. But we do have 0% financing through mass save for folks that want to convert. And we do have other programs for folks that, don't want to spend the highly priced conversion. We do have other methods to try to resolve some of those issues with customers. So.
Okay, so some of that information will be available in that letter?
Yep, not that letter. That would be in the handout for those 12 or 13 customers that are on that stretch. We would individually send them a pamphlet or a folder with all the information about if they want to convert to natural gas, who to reach out to in the sales group, and then all that information would be in there for people to read up and read and move forward with it.
I have one question on that. Is it easier for you to connect people off the gas line you're putting in before you cover everything? Or does it make no difference? I mean, if someone decides, a month or 2 months later to connect up, I mean, do you put connections in essentially as you put the pipe in for each of the houses in case they want to connect?
No, we won't do that up front. I mean, we will definitely market the area. The folks that want to convert, we will install the gas lines while we're installing the gas main. But the customers that are unsure, don't know if they want to do it, and like you said, whether it's a month or two from now, we can always go back and we can connect to the gas line at that point, as long as the town's not paving that road. A couple months afterwards, we would not have to worry about that. If the town was to pave the road, then we would want to install stubs on people's property just in case people wanted to connect at a later time, so we didn't have to dig up the road after it was newly paved.
Okay, that's what I wondered about. And just out of pure curiosity, what kind of cost are we talking about to the individual homeowners to hook up to this gas line?
It depends on what they're converting. I mean, if they're converting their whole house, heating system, some people just convert for gas, stove, water heaters. It all depends on what they're using. But for the whole conversion, for heat, I would say it roughly goes between 10 to 12,000 for everything.
Frank,
yes.
So you'll be digging up the street, and then what condition will the street be left in when you're done?
The way, obviously the way it was found. So we will, every day we will hot top if we're digging in the road, we're going to try to go off pavement in certain areas that we can. And there is a section of sidewalk that we may go into the sidewalk, and we'll repair that as well. So whatever we dig, whatever we touch, disturb, we will repair back to the way it was. And then we'll also come back the following year and repair the roadway and do a grind of that trench that we affected in the road.
Okay. Okay, and then any resurfacing of the road down the road would be on the town.
If they were to pave the rest of the road again. I know the road's in pretty good shape, so we'll repair,
Yeah.
the section that we disturbed, and we'll mill and overlay it to try to blend it in as best as possible to the condition of the roads in today.
All right. So, any other questions from the board? I think that satisfies my questions.
Mark, I have something.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say is that Frank and DPW, we are still negotiating on exactly what the pavement will be at the end. Any newly paved surfaces will have a 5-year moratorium on them, so we'll be working that out with the gas company. They have a road opening permit into us now, so we were going to contact them. We'll determine the limits. What is the reasonable limits for the repave? And I'd like to reach out to the residents that the gas company feels that may not connect, and just send them a little letter that says, if this gets paved in front of your house, you may not have a chance for 5 years. So I just want the residents to know that.
So for those of you that don't know, Lisa Lane is the town engineer, and I think that's a great idea, Lisa. So I appreciate you bringing that up because that 5-year moratorium could surprise people that choose to connect in a year if they're not aware of that. So that's a good thought. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a number of questions, Mark.
Okay, Tim, go ahead.
So for Eversource, have you identified the customers that you're mentioning along that stretch that are not currently served by SET? And by that stretch, are you talking about Haskell Street, Bayard Lane neighborhood, Yeoman Drive? What have you done to identify the customers without service?
We looked at our GIS records to see where we have gas, where we don't have gas, and where we're going to pass the homes that don't. We've identified, like I said, approximately 15 homes along that path towards Lyman Street from about number 20 Haskell Street that don't have gas today, that will be marketing and reaching out to those customers to see if they would like to convert as we're installing the gas line.
Okay. And so you'll be installing a stub, as I understand it, if none of those customers acted now to elect for a hookup. You would be putting a stub in at those locations?
We will not put a stub unless the entire roadway will be repaved by the town or, to that degree, because we'll still be able to install a gas line on that roadway if the customer decides to move forward with it, if not this year, next year, the year after. The reason why we wouldn't install a stub unless the whole road was being paved, in case third-party damages, somebody else is digging on the road, hits that gas line, that stub, and then we get gas blowing in the neighborhood, for something that's not connected. So we try to avoid that unless we're going to do the full connection or installation.
So assuming you were going to do a full connection and installation with all of the homes that don't have it, how would that impact your project timeline and the duration of this?
It would probably just add another couple more days to do the gas services, probably another week.
Okay. Well, then I'll just comment for the board that in the climate action plan, we would definitely not encourage this kind of gas hookup at this point. I realize that this is something that's market driven and the customers could choose to do so. But Mass Save will likely discontinue any kind of incentive for higher efficiency gas within the next 2 years. And, this will be highly restrictive. This isn't the direction that I think we should be going. It's grandfathered to serve Pulte. I would be in favor of just extending the gas line to serve the Pulte need that's approved. So I would be opposed to any residence hookup, but I know that's not the action before us. I'm just letting you know that this is not the kind of thing where we should be looking for additional gas customers at this point with what we have to do. That's all, Mark.
Yeah, Tim, thank you for that. I agree with you, though, that's outside of our scope on this. But we're really being tasked to decide is whether this is a de minimis change or whether it's significant enough to warrant reopening the public hearing. Since that is under debate, I would like to just check in with the public that's in attendance to see if they have any questions, because we may not have another chance to hear from them. If anyone in attendance wishes to address the board, just raise your hand. I don't see anybody with their hand raised, so I will move forward and make a motion to find that I'm sorry, Jim Robbins, I forgot to give you a chance to comment on any further on this.
Mr. Chairman, I have drafted a potential motion for you that explains that the proposed route along Haskell Street is a de minimis change and within the scope of the original approved special permit. I can't share that with you. It has to go through Kristen because there are so many people on the call, but I can read it to you. And perhaps Kristen can send it to the members to read.
Picking your nose. Even though I'm muted and I'm not
Hello?
video.
Okay. Well, you're not muted, whoever that is, but thank you for sharing. So, Kristen, can you put that motion up on the screen? All right, Jim, I don't know if Kristen's with us still, so why don't you?
I'm going to put it in an email to you for you to read it.
Great, I'll look for that.
I will read it for the board's purposes while you're waiting for that. I don't know if Kristen could put it in the chat to the members, but I wasn't able to select the members in the meeting. So the proposed motion is that the board finds that the proposed Eversource gas line alternative route along Haskell Street is within the original scope of the current special permit for Del Webb Lake Chauncey Lake rather. The project element change is de minimis and therefore a public hearing is not required.
Just waiting for that to come in so I can, if anybody else gets it first, feel free to.
That has been sent, so you should get it any second.
So I will make a motion that the planning board finds that the proposed Eversource gas line alternative route along Haskell Street is within the original scope of the current special permit for Del Webb Chauncey Lake. The project element change is de minimis and therefore a public hearing is not required.
I'll second that, Mark.
Okay, any discussion of the motion from the board? Okay, hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Peter Bouchard,
Yes.
Hazel,
Yes.
Jim Ball,
Yes.
Tim Kaler.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor. That ends that agenda item. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing on West Park Drive extension definitive subdivision
Thank you all.
plan. Thank you, Frank and Mark, for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you for having us.
So next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for the West Park Drive extension definitive subdivision plan. This is a public hearing, so I will remind anybody in the public that you will have a chance to speak. But we're going to turn to Jim Robbins first to address where we are in this process and what we'll be discussing tonight. Jim Robbins.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Silverberg. At our last meeting, you may recall, we had our second discussion regarding traffic And at that meeting, there were only a couple issues that remained outstanding. It was basically a request from our consultant, McMahon Associates, for additional information from Vanessa Associates. I've been in contact with both of those consultants today. I will leave it to them to discuss that. In addition, the board had requested a written response from Caruth Capital regarding the request of the Active Transportation Safety Committee to widen the easement for the multi-purpose trail, the multi-use trail. We did receive that letter that was shared with the board today. If you have copies of it, I will just reference it by date. It was dated today, and it was from Mark Farrow from Caruth Capital. I don't know if Mark wants to speak to that later when we continue testimony, give Mark an opportunity to speak about that. But those were the two things that were on the table. Other than that, I think we're pretty much wrapped up. You do have a draft decision, a draft definitive approval for this subdivision plan. I also want to remind everybody that the public elements of this project are the realignment of a new signalized intersection at the extension of West Park Drive, which will be built by the applicant. The intersection with the signalized light and the widening of Flanders Road itself will be paid for by a MassWorks grant and will be publicly bid and overseen by the town. So that work is public work. In addition, the multi-use trail, the bike and pedestrian trail, is also being funded by MassWorks. So that will also be considered a public element. The extension of West Park Drive itself is private. I just bring that up so that you understand this is not a typical subdivision. This is a private road, and it does not create any additional building lots. It does create new frontage for existing lots.
Thanks, Jim. Why don't we turn to the applicant for any comments, and then we can go to the board, see if there's any outstanding issues. Mark Verall, do you want to address the board?
No, we're happy to ask any questions, but we're hoping that the board can approve this project so that we can move on and meet our deadlines required by the grant.
So let's turn to the board for any questions. Tim Kaler, I'll start with you.
I have no questions, Mark.
Hazel?
I have no questions, and the only thing that I just would like to comment on is the letter that came from the traffic department, whatever the name of this new committee is, essentially, is that when we approved the original plan on this, that we were really constrained by the topography of the property. And I think that's something that the traffic committee ought to be careful looking at when they make their comments on things, because topography makes a big difference on where you can put things. And that plus conservation restraints that we now have because of the change in conservation laws. So I think that the approval that we originally made on this, the bike trail and public walking thing, really meets the requirements for the public to be able to use this, and that the applicant had moved it in order to take advantage of a different topography and to comply with conservation concerns. And so that I think there needs to be no change in our approval at this point. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Thanks, Hazel. Peter, do you have anything?
I just think since they're not adding actual buildings, and so that shouldn't increase the traffic flow, I think at this point we should move forward.
Jim Ball?
No further questions, Mark. I would echo Hazel's comments.
All right, so I have no other questions. Jim, you want us to vote on, well, we need to turn to the public to see if there's any questions, but since I have your attention, do you want us to vote on closing the public hearing and then go through the decision? Or do you want to go through the decision first?
I think it's appropriate that you keep the public hearing open until all votes are taken. The reason for that is because once you close public hearing, no additional information can be taken. If there's a question that arises while you're reviewing the draft decision and you've closed the public hearing, you can't ask any additional questions of the applicant. So I'd ask that you keep the hearing open until you're finished with your actions. One additional point I had mentioned, I do want to close the loop on the traffic concerns, and I do want to ask Representative of Vanessa, if Vanessa is here, to please respond whether or not they've had an opportunity to discuss with McMahon the couple issues regarding the signal.
Okay.
Yes, this is Derek Roach, consultant with Vanessa and Associates. We did speak with Jeff today from McMahon, and we have agreed to do the technical memorandum with the updated build analysis, with the updated clearance intervals and the restriction to the right turn on red coming out of the site. In terms of other comments, I would defer to our applicant to that.
What other outstanding issues were there, Jim? Was that?
That was what I was concerned with. A representative from McMahon, Jeffrey, is here this evening. I want to make sure that answers his question.
Jeff Bandini, are you?
Yes, again, Jeff Bandini, McMahon Associates. So yeah, in our last letter, we had outlined a request to provide the build analysis just to kind of make sure that all of the material that were included in the original VAI study and with our comments can be incorporated as part of the final signal design as part of the build program for that. And I understand that's, something that would come, after the approval. So as long as that information is provided, McMahon is comfortable with that outcome.
Okay. All right. So before we go through the decision, I just want to check in to see if there's anyone in the public that has questions at this point. There will be another chance before we close the hearing. I don't see anyone's hands raised. Do we have any public comments sent to us, Kristen?
No, and I checked the planning inbox. I don't have any messages.
Okay. It seems like we're safe on that end to move forward with Jen Robbins going through the decision. Everybody on the board has had a copy of this and a chance to review it. But Jim, I'll ask you to go through it, summarize it for the public, and the applicant can ask any questions.
So yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we normally do is I would give an overview of the decision, and Kristen is going to bring it up so anyone who's attending the meeting can actually see what's written in the decision. I will review it for the conditions and the waivers and talk about the decision in a general fashion. Then ask the board if they would specifically address the waivers first, and then the overall approval.
I've seen this kid.
Jim, can you stop for a second?
Sounds like it.
I remind everybody to please mute their
About
microphones.
tearing down the building right there and putting in a huge Amazon plant.
Listen, do you have the ability to mute that person?
Oh my gosh.
Yep, I'll work on that. I just need to find it.
Jim, I'm
Well,
sorry.
that was his last, of course.
All right, Jim, I'm sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
Sure. So the first page, this is the first page of the decision. The first page is just an explanation of the plans that we received. And obviously the first paragraph says that you will approve these plans with conditions. So we will move on then to the findings on the next page. Thank you. So this is a description of the plan. You see the assessor's parcels for each of the addresses through which the new road passes. So as you can see, it's passing through 5 different parcels. These are all existing lots with buildings, and there's frontage created for each of these lots, but there are no new buildings proposed. Next page. So this is the findings section. Basically, this says that the planning board has reviewed the plans. They find that the intention of this plan is to connect the existing West Park Drive to Flanders Road by creating a new signalized intersection. At that intersection, the signal will provide for dedicated right-hand turn lanes out from West Park Drive onto Flanders and from Flanders onto West Park Drive. There'll be a new signal installed at that intersection, and the work in Flanders Road, as well as the signal and the bike multi-use trail, will be paid for by a grant from MassWorks. This is a description of the current parcels and the frontage. And then the next paragraph explains that the utilities in the right-of-way will remain private, that the bike path will be public and open to the public, though it resides on private land. It'll be constructed with public money. The next section talks about the site distance along Flanders Road and the fact that the new site distance after the work is done on Flanders will comply with the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Official Standards and regulations. The last part talks about stormwater and runoff, and that a draft pollution prevention plan, also known as a stormwater pollution prevention plan, a SWIP, has been delivered for review by the town, and that a final SWIP will be approved prior to construction. And then these are the approvals that you're giving with this overall approval. Number one, the extension of the current terminus of West Park Drive through to Flanders Road, as shown on the approved definitive plan. Number two, the construction of a new fully signalized intersection of West Park Drive extension and Flanders Road with supporting signal appurtenances as shown on the approved definitive plans. Three, widening and improvements to Flanders Road in support of the new intersection as shown on the approved definitive plans. Number four, the construction of a new bike path, multi-use trail as shown on the approved definitive plans. Here's where you begin the conditions of approval. The first few are strictly boilerplate. It says that the applicant shall comply with the requirements of our zoning bylaws as amended through March 2019, as well as the rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land in Westborough as amended through November 28th of 2000, unless waived herein in the plan. And we do have several waivers that we'll talk about at the end of the decision. The second part says, the second condition says that the applicant will comply with all the comments from town boards and departments during the finishing of the definitive plans and prior to execution of construction documents by the planning board. Number three, the applicant will ensure that all access and utility easements with the associated purposes and restrictions are identified on the definitive plans and are acceptable to the planning board. Number four, the applicant shall respond to all the town engineer review comments noted below, and there's a couple review letters from the town engineer. Some of the changes that still need to be made to the definitive plans are being worked out. Number five, the planning board reserves the right to hire outside consultants or inspectors as necessary. That's boilerplate. We always do that. The applicant shall bear the cost of those consultants if necessary. Along the traffic, along the roadway, this section has to do with traffic and roadway. This is letting people know that West Park Drive is a private road and will be constructed as shown on the plans. And as such, some of the design of the private way does not comply with all of the subdivision rules and regulations. And that's because it is a private way. However, we find that the width of the proposed way is adequate for its purposes in a commercial industrial subdivision. All the private and public easements shall be identified on the definitive plans and the corresponding language to explain the rights and privileges, obligations, and restrictions associated with the easements are to be placed on the definitive plans. Number two, the proposed new subdivision roadways and intersections shall be engineered to accommodate emergency and fire apparatus. And that was reviewed during the plan review to make sure that swept paths for our largest vehicles were accommodated in the new design, and they were. Number three, a traffic light shall be located at the proposed intersection of West Park Drive Extension and Flanders Road as shown on the approved plans. This will ensure a safe and timely passage of traffic from all directions at this intersection. Project shall incorporate a pedestrian crossing signal to allow for appropriate flow and safety for pedestrians as well as vehicle traffic. All costs associated with design and materials and installation of the traffic signal as shown on the plans is programmed to be funded through the project MassWorks grant. Number 4, the multi-use trail shall be installed as shown in the definitive plans. All the costs associated with its design and installation shall also be borne by the MassWorks grant. Number 5, the applicant shall restrict tractor trailer trucks, and this is something that was discussed during the first phase. The applicant shall restrict tractor trailer trucks from using the new roadway. The applicant shall place a sign noting that restriction at the entrance, knowing the restriction at the entrance of West Park Drive extension with Flanders Road and along West Park Drive heading to Flanders Road to prevent tractor trailers from using West Park Drive. The next 2 conditions relate specifically to the MassWorks grant. It calls out the title of the grant, the date it was executed, and the town's vendor code, just to be consistent with the MassWorks grant application. The items that are going to be conducted as part of the grant include project design, survey, engineering and bidding documents, construction administration, and project closeout. That's what's required by the MassWorks grant, will be overseen by the town. Conservation Commission approval. This is something that we put in all of our subdivision approvals, and it states that the applicant must get an order of conditions and an updated order of conditions where necessary as required by the Conservation Commission prior to the endorsement of the definitive plans and the commencement of work as shown on it. Erosion and sedimentation control says that the wetlands need to be protected, and the erosion and sediment control program, including best management practices, shall comply with the erosion control measures shown on the definitive plan, and the applicant shall provide bi-weekly reports on the condition and effectiveness of the erosion control measures. In addition, stormwater and erosion control reports shall be submitted prior to predicted storm events as well as post-storm events. And the reason for that is we want to assure that the erosion control measures are in place and functioning as intended prior to a storm event. And then we want a report to see how they actually functioned following the storm event. That's typical. We do that for all subdivisions. The detention basin, this is boilerplate. It simply says that they need to maintain the detention basin. This is going to be a private basin, so the town is not going to accept this. So the applicant shall maintain the basin as approved by the town engineer. Streetlights shall be installed along West Park Drive extension as shown on the plans. Utilities, the applicant shall provide a sewer stub for the existing sewer in West Park Drive to the abutter at 134 Flanders Road property in the vicinity of the existing septic tank and distribution box. This was discussed during the preliminary plan review because the abutter who is receiving new frontage at 134 Flanders Road wants to tie into the sewer that will be brought down West Park Drive. Fire prevention, this is standard. Fire hydrants along the roadway shall be spaced no more than 500 feet apart. We talked about this earlier. Swept path analysis for the fire department apparatus shall be performed, and road design shall assure compliance with the town's requirements, and it does. Zoning compliance, they need to provide a zoning table on the plan, which notes that all of the new frontages created by the new roadway comply with the town's requirements for frontage for commercial lots, and they do. You have more than adequate frontage for each of the new frontages, I should say. And that as-built plans need to be delivered to the town for the town engineer and the building commissioner where appropriate. The next section is a list of all of the letters that we've received, and there will be a couple additions to that because we received a letter today from the applicant regarding the multi-use trail. We also received a letter, the original letter that started that discussion from the Active Transportation Safety Committee, that will also be added. Letters from the consultants are noted here. And then we come to the waivers. So I asked that the board consider each one of these waivers. We can read them all through and vote them as a group, or you can vote them all individually. Each one of these waivers is the same as it was in the preliminary plan. So you've actually approved all of these waivers before. There's nothing new here. So what
Jim,
would be
why
the
don't you
board's
read
pleasure?
through, Jim, why don't you read through all of them and then we'll see if the board has questions on any individual one.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll read the preamble. The West Park Drive Extension Definitive Subdivision Plan has been designed to conform to the requirements stated in the Westborough subdivision rules and regulations to the greatest extent feasible while establishing the safest design for drivers and pedestrians in and around the vicinity. The applicant has requested and the planning board approves the following waivers from the regulations with appropriate regulation sections noted. The granting of these waivers shall not compromise public safety. So in the subdivision rules and regulations, section Roman numeral 4, D1A1, the berm radii at street intersections shall be a minimum of 50 feet. The proposed berm radii at the intersection shall be created by West Park Drive Extension and Flanders Road and is less than 50 feet on the eastern side of the West Park Drive Extension. Due to the road's proximity to the wetland and the effort to avoid additional impact to the board vegetated wetland, BVW, located on the north side of Flanders Road into the west side of West Park Drive Extension, the proposed berm radii at this location is allowed to be 30 feet. So the reason for this waiver is to protect the wetlands, the abutting wetland. Section Roman numeral 4, D1B2. Well, I should have asked if there are any questions on that before I move to the second.
Okay, any questions from the board on waiver number 1? I'm going to just give the public a chance to comment on this before we vote. So any questions from the public on waiver number 1? Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so we'll move on to waiver 2. Jim.
Section section Roman numeral 4, D1B2. The minimum width of pavement in all proposed streets shall be 36 feet, and this is for commercial industrial streets. Due to the wetland constraints, the proposed width of pavement for the road is 28 feet. 28-foot wide 2-lane road will widen to 33 feet and 3 lanes approaching the intersection at Flanders Road. Please note the existing pavement at the existing board vegetated wet crossing is proposed to be widened to the largest extent possible, 28 feet, by relocating the existing sidewalk to outside the existing crossing.
Any questions from the board on that waiver? Okay, and then again, any questions from the public? All right, Jim, go ahead.
Waiver 3, section Roman numeral 5, C7. Berm shall be granite vertical curbing for the entire length of the roadway unless otherwise approved by the planning board and the Department of Public Works manager. Granite curbs shall be in conformance with the Mass Department of Public Works standard specifications, specification M9.04.1, type VA4. That's a type of granite curb. At the intersection with the existing streets, granite curbing shall extend the distance of the arc plus a straight intersection of 8 feet along the existing pavement. All curbing shall be finished to 6 inches in height. The applicant will use bituminous Cape Cod style berms in lieu of granite from the northern section of the roadway from the existing terminus of West Park Drive to the common property boundary between 2200 West Park Drive and 134 Flanders Road, approximately from station 8+0 to station 23+62. The southern section of the roadway, station 0+00 to station 8+00, shall be granite curbing consistent with regulations. The reason for this is that this is a private road. The town will not be maintaining it. This will be maintained by the applicant. So any damage to the road, they'll need to repair. The section that will remain granite is along the abutter's property, 134 Flanders Road, at their request. So that will still be granite.
Okay. Any questions from the board? And again, any questions from the public? All right, Jim, I think one more. Is that right?
Couple more.
Couple more, sorry.
Number 4, section Roman numeral 5D, the subgrade of 5-foot wide sidewalks shall be compacted, shaped, and rolled a foundation of not less than 6 inches of gravel conforming to the requirements of the roadway base shall be placed on the subgrade and rolled to a grade of 3 inches below finished top of walk. The gravel foundation shall be increased to 12 inches at driveways, 1 2-inch and 1 1-inch compact layer, each of bottom and top respectively bituminous concrete shall be placed and thoroughly rolled on the graded gravel foundation. The proposed multi-use path is designed to double as a sidewalk and will be 8 feet wide and 4 inches thick of stone dust. So we have no standard in our subdivision rules and regulations for a bike path. The closest thing we have is a sidewalk. Since this path is intended to be a multi-use path, it serves pedestrians as well, but it's primarily intended to be for all uses, so a bike path. So rather than construct this as a sidewalk, we're constructing it as a bike path. That's why it's 8 feet wide with 4 inches of stone dust. Any question?
Does anybody on the board have a question on that? And anyone from the public? No. Okay. All right, one more. Thank you, Jim.
Number 5, the town of Westborough DPW engineering design arterial roadway typical section. The figure in this section displays the required symmetry for roadways. The proposed pavement for the traveled way is not coincidental with the center of the proposed right-of-way, since it has been created with a smaller paved driving surface without a paved sidewalk. The project proposes to replace the paved sidewalk with a multi-use trail associated with the roadway. The roadway symmetry shall be as shown on the project plan entitled Layout and Materials Plan, sheets 4.1 to 4.3, dated November 19, 2020, revised through March 16, 2021. So number 5 relates to number 4. As we talked about earlier, we're not having sidewalks here, we're having a multi-use path. And because the layout of the road and the actual paved roadway is off center, that's the request for this waiver, because our typical roadway cross-section does not fit this design.
Okay, any questions? Did I hear a question? No. Okay, any questions from the board? No. Any questions from the public?
Mark.
Bill.
Bill Lanane, 22 Smith Street.
Right.
Having watched this project from afar, I just echo what Hazel had to say up front, is that to see it come through with all that they promised to do is a great job by them. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any other questions or comments from the public? All right, Jim, is there anything else in the decision?
No, the last simply states that the applicant's failure to comply with any of the conditions would require a public hearing and possible consideration of revocation permit. But I've never seen that happen, so hopefully that won't happen.
Okay. All right, so that's the decision. I'll ask the board one more time if there's any questions or comments. And then I'll, again, ask the public if any final questions or comments. Okay. I think we're going to vote each waiver individually, so we have to do a roll call vote on those. I will just get my decision up.
Mark, can we vote them as a group?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mark, I'm just asking if we can vote them as a group.
Jim, are you comfortable with us voting the 5 waivers as a group, or do you want us to do it individually?
No, I think you can vote them as a group. As a matter of fact, they're kind of long-winded, so I think you should.
Okay, so I will make a motion to grant a waiver from the subdivision rules and regulations for section 4D1A1, section 4D1B2, section VC7, section VD, and the town of Westborough DPW engineering design arterial roadway typical sections.
Second that, Mark.
Jim, are you happy with the motion as stated?
Sure.
Okay. Any discussion of the motion?
Mark and Jim, I don't think I'm allowed to vote on this one. Is that accurate?
That is true. I'm sorry, I should have explained that. Peter is new to the board, as you know, and was not able to attend any of the public hearings other than at the last meeting. Under the Mullen Rule through the State Zoning Act, you're allowed to miss one public hearing. And if you miss one, then if you review the files, review the tapes, read the minutes, you can sign the waiver and be allowed to vote. However, in this case, Peter's missed more than one public hearing, so he's not eligible for that waiver.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any questions or discussion of the motion? Okay, I will do a roll call vote. All those in favor of the motion, Hazel Nurse,
Vote to approve.
Jim Ball,
Yes, approve, Mark.
Tim Kaler.
Yes to approve, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes to approve as well. That's 4-0 to grant the 5 waivers as described. And then I will make a motion to approve the definitive subdivision plan for West Park Drive extension. Actually, before I proceed, I'd just like to check with the applicant to make sure that they've had a chance to read this decision and are comfortable with the terms and willing to comply. Anybody on the applicant wishes to address that? Just want to make sure you've had a chance to review this. Okay, I don't hear anyone from the applicant addressing that.
For the board's information, I submitted this to the applicant last Friday, as well as his engineers. I received written comments on Monday morning, yesterday morning. We agreed with their comments. I reviewed it with the town engineer last week in the office, and all of the comments that were requested by the applicant's engineer have been incorporated. None of them were substantive. There were corrections on a couple dates. There were addition of a couple plan sheets. There was some discussion about the surface of the bike trail, but nothing was substantive. There were no conditions that were altered or changed.
Okay, so at this point, I think we're comfortable that they've had a chance to respond to any conditions of the permit of the decision. Sorry, and we can move forward with voting on this. So I will make a motion to approve the definitive subdivision plan for West Park Drive extension as described and amended tonight.
Second.
Okay, any discussion of that motion, Jim? You're happy with that motion as written?
Did you, I didn't hear it totally, but did you note the date of the decision, April 6, 21?
I did not, but we can consider that bookkeeping change. So I think the motion stands with the date of April 6, 2021. All right, so we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote again. All those in favor, Tim Kaler,
Yes to approve, Mark.
Hazel,
Yes to approve.
Jim Ball,
Yes, Mark.
okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 4-0 to approve. All right, I think that's it for that agenda item. I would like to thank the applicant for coming in and everybody for all their hard work on this.
Do we need to close the hearing, Mark?
We do, Jim. You want to motion that?
I move that we close the hearing on the West Park Drive extension definitive subdivision plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, I heard Hazel second first. So we will do a roll call. Any discussion of the motion? No. Roll call vote on that. Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Hazel,
Yes to approve.
Jim Ball,
Yes, Mark.
and I vote yes as well. That's 4-0 to close the public hearing. All right. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which, well, I think everyone will be happy that we're on this item finally. Thank everyone for their patience and just remind everyone to please stay muted and raise your hand using the raise your hand feature on Zoom. I will get to everybody please, if you hear your question asked and answered, please try not to be redundant. We don't need 5 people addressing the same item. If it's already-
better view.
What's that? So the other thing I would just remind everybody that this will not finish tonight, that we'll have multiple public hearings on this. And, you know, some of your answers may not be addressed tonight, but we'll endeavor to address them before the finish of this process. Okay, so Jim Robbins, I will turn to you for a discussion and a summary of the public hearing for site plan review application at 4400 Computer Drive.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Silverberg. As you know, the building at 4400 Computer Drive has had several different lives. Originally, it was built for Data General, and as such, it was occupied by several hundred workers. At a time, I believe at its height, it was around 1,500 workers. The applicant can give us the exact number if you're interested. Since that time, it's had several other occupants, but it's never been fully occupied like it was when it was originally built and originally occupied by Data General. The site is located at 4400 Computer Drive. It currently complies with the zoning that was in place at that time. The proposal now is to create a warehouse and fulfillment center, to raise the existing building, and to build a smaller building on the existing site. The need for parking, and due to the reduced number of employees, is significantly less. The applicant will make a presentation this evening of the site plan review. And again, this is a site plan review public hearing. And the applicant will make their presentation showing the plans. I ask that there be questions from the board as well as the public, with the understanding that a decision will probably not be made this evening. We're going to discuss the site development itself. We're going to talk about traffic. We're going to talk about any impacts to the town as well as surrounding neighborhood. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, through you, I'd like you to recognize the applicant's team and allow them to make their presentation.
Okay, Bob Buckley, are you going to take the lead on this? Or?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you could see me because I can't see myself on the, but I do exist. So good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the consideration. We're here this evening to provide an overview of the project that
Bob, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you just introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein, counsel for Atlantic Management, the applicant. I have with me this evening John Perry and Doug Landry, who are our site civil and traffic engineers from Langen. And from the applicant, I have Joe Zink and John Sullivan. Our intent tonight is to provide an overview of the project as that has been the subject of discussion for many months now with the town, trying to assess what the impacts would be and what the town's considerations would be going through. Just give a little background, Jim is correct. The building was built in 1978. I think that it would be safe to say that it is obsolete in terms of its responsiveness to the marketplace today for 2 reasons, the age as well as the shifting demographics in terms of what is resounding in the market as we go through these interesting times. It sits on a site of approximately 93 acres and is of a size of about 308,000 square feet. It's presently occupied by BNY and Mellon, and I've learned in the past that it was the former site of Data General. We view this as a unique opportunity for a number of reasons, because it's to redevelop a site with the user that many, if not all, of the current impacts that would be realized from the operation of this site will be mitigated or reduced substantially as a result of the new development. One of the most important ones, I think, would be for the residents is the elimination of the existing trucking facility, NFI, that generates approximately 260 trips per day. That as this project takes form, that will go away. We are, and John Perry from Langham will go into this in greater detail, but we are proposing a 221,000 e-commerce distribution center, which would be the state of the art and would incorporate many of the innovations being actually developed down the street in the great town of Westborough. The uses that are going to be employed here are permitted as of right, and we are proceeding under the IB zoning classification, which is site plan review. Another major benefit to this project is the on-site parking will approximately be reduced by 1/2. So you have a reduction in parking, substantial reduction in trip generation, which will be discussed this evening, and a reduction in massing, all very positive benefits. At the same time, there'll be an upgrade of site drainage. I think it's important to realize that I know there has been some concerns voiced. Drainage on the site will all be improved. It is not being redirected. It will not impact the abutting properties. And we think that when the site is completed, it will comply with the state standards in terms of stormwater management. One of the things that we have had numerous discussions with the town going forward on this is that it's an opportunity for the town to stabilize and preserve positive tax revenue. It's direct tax revenue resulting from the repositioning of an obsolete building, but there's also many other taxes that will be attendant to this project that will accrue to the benefit of the town, such as excise taxes on the vehicles and other ancillary services that are provided within the town and generate hopefully a positive business climate. One of the things that we'll touch on this evening is because of the substantial reduction in many of the impacts, including traffic, which we'll discuss, we've decided that in consultation with the town, that one of the things that we're going to propose is that the applicant participate in the preparation of a facilities and infrastructure analysis for this part of town to ascertain, as hopefully this project is a kickstarter for other similar projects or activity in the area, that what are the needs, the future needs of the community going forward, almost like a mini master plan that can become a governing document and may address such things as public service and public safety facilities that may be needed as economic activity grows. And the applicant feels that while traffic mitigation is probably not warranted here because of the substantial reduction, there still is an obligation to the host community to be responsive to articulating those needs and helping to address those. So the applicant is willing to make a substantial contribution, a meaningful contribution to the preparation of that report that would be a guiding document, hopefully, for the town going forward. And at this point in time, which is an extremely important document, because one would venture to say that within the next 9 months to a year, there's going to be a substantial stimulus package, either at the federal or state level. And those communities that are being proactive, that have articulated and developed their needs and can move quickly on them, will be the ones that will be rewarded by getting these projects. In the prior stimulus packages years ago, it used to be called shovel ready, but these projects hopefully will be identified and in a position to benefit from any programs that are implemented to help stimulate the economy and address the aging infrastructure. The site itself is not going to be altered in terms of buffers or other important considerations for the abutting property owners. And there was also a comment that was passed on to us that there was some concern with respect to the impact on the surrounding community with respect to activities associated with demolition of the existing building, as well as construction activity as it goes forward. in terms of potential blasting or any damages. There's no indication there'd be any substantial blasting, and even if there were, that is very tightly regulated and mandated in terms of pre-surveys and post-surveys. So there's protection there. As to demolition, again, highly regulated. The applicant in this instance has substantial experience in engaging in demolition activities within the town with respect to their Otis Street project. And as far as I know, that there was no indication of any problems associated with that. I will wrap up, given the length of the presentation, by saying that this is a unique opportunity, I believe, for the town to be at the forefront of an e-commerce state-of-the-art facility and be on the beginning of a repositioning of the local and regional economy. And I hope that the town feels the same way. We have prided ourselves as trying to be responsive to any and all questions. As I tell Jim in our discussions over the years, it's our responsibility to get him the answers. It's not his responsibility, it's our responsibility. And I think we've tried to adhere to that on a going forward basis. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to John Perry from Langen to walk the board from a technical standpoint through the proposed site plan.
Right. John, go ahead. Do we have visual?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Kristen, you want to go over put those up, or John?
I can. I'd like to share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, Kristen, do you have to grant him authority to do that?
No, he should be able to click share screen at the bottom and go ahead.
Okay, so is everyone able to see that now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Again, I'm John Perry with Langen Engineering, the project manager from the with a civil engineer, civil and landscape survey. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm going to go through the project. And what I have up here is just obviously the existing conditions at 4400 Computer Drive. It's an existing office building site. Building footprint, as Bob said before, much bigger than the proposed building. Obviously, here we are, Computer Drive, just using to Route 9, and then Technology Drive here to the east. Just plan north is to the left on our drawings, just to orient everyone. So there's currently over 2,000 parking spaces on site, and there's about 100 tractor trailer parking spaces on the northern portion of this lot as well. What we're proposing is, well, let me go through this property line here around the perimeter, and then just to show you there's some wetlands to the west. There's a wetland, basically the whole western and northern portion of the lot here. Smith Street to the north as well. So what we're proposing is the site plan, and as you could see, kind of flipping between the two, is that we're really not encroaching on any disturbed areas. Our limit of work is going to be generally the same. We're not proposing to expand the developed area. The limit of paving, maybe a couple feet here and there, but our goal was really to stay within the existing developed area of the site, and we've been able to do that. Let me kind of zoom in, go to a different sheet here, just because it's better image quality. I can zoom in on this site plan and take you through the layout. So we've got two access points from Computer Drive. So one would be here, more to the east, existing access point for the site, 4400 Computer Drive, which is a shared access for the site, and this 4600 Computer Drive now. we're proposing to maintain that with some fairly minor improvements, just widening out the curb radius at that at the intersection just slightly. The other access point here is through 2400 Computer Drive, which is currently the main access for the tractor trailers that come and go from that back lot. There's a couple hundred truck trips per day coming and going through that route. And we're going to maintain that for any truck traffic that comes through here, and I'll elaborate on that in just a second. So here's the main building in the center here. Again, it's about a 200,021 square foot building, industrial warehouse, delivery center type building. We have 441 employee parking spaces in the southern portion of the lot here. And then what you see around the rest of the perimeter here is van delivery areas. So we have a few van delivery parking spaces. So here, and then here. So there are 847 van parking spaces. And then what you see here adjacent to the building are where the vans do their operations. They come in the morning, arriving around 9:20 in the morning, stage up in this area here, and then systematically come over here under this canopy where they load up for the day, and then they go on their way to make deliveries. And that happens on both sides, kind of a mirror image on both sides of this facility here. We're proposing 17 truck loading spaces on the northern end of the building. And we're proposing 30 truck parking spaces as well. All trucks will be coming off peak hours between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. at night. So there won't be any, they won't exacerbate any, traffic with trucks now. Again, the truck traffic will be greatly reduced from, as we understand, roughly 200 plus per day now to the 30 that I mentioned a minute ago. I do want to point out that we're maintaining a really robust, vegetative buffer between the site and the residential neighbors here on Smith Street. Again, we're not proposing to remove any vegetation except for a little bit here with this stormwater basin. So there's a current stormwater basin there now. We're just going to enlarge that a bit to handle site stormwater and to better treat it and infiltrate. But other than that, we're maintaining a really nice, thick vegetated buffer for them. It's about a 350 feet from the, edge of the parking area here to the nearest property line through the woods. And I did want to point out too that the truck areas here, if there were any concern with noise to the neighbors here, that's about 1,000 feet to the nearest residential structure, and again through a very thick wooded area. Let me move on to take you through stormwater and utilities and a few other technical items here. And I'd be happy to answer questions as well.
Yeah, well, let's just pause there and see if the board has any questions.
Sure.
Anyone on the board have anything so far?
Hi, Mark. I have a question.
Peter, go ahead.
Is there any way? Can you pull up the plan one more time?
Yes.
So, is there any way? I know this is probably a big ask, but is there any way to flip where the trucks are unloading, you know, so they're coming in when people on Smith are sleeping, right? I know you said there's a buffer zone, but what happens if you put the truck distribution on the other side of that building? Is there not space for that? Because you were saying the workers come in, you know, at 9 in the morning to do the van deliveries. So if they could park on the back lot, they wouldn't be disturbing the people living on Smith off hours. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think I understand the question. The challenge there, to be honest with you, is the topography of the site. There's about a 50-foot grade change from Computer Drive down to, you know, this rear portion of the lot here. In order to make everything work, this employee lot is sloped at about a 5%. Drops, I'd have to look at the plan, probably about 15 feet from here to, you know, the building entrance there. But it does flatten out quite a bit in the back here. So that's, you know, one of the main drivers for how we laid this site out, because you can't have, you know, the truck areas on that grade of a grade.
Okay, Peter, does that answer your question?
Yes, at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the board have anything so far?
Mark, if I may?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just curious, are the current trucks coming day and night or only certain hours?
Is there someone who can answer that?
Bob, do you know the answer to that question? You're on mute.
I do not know the answer offhand, but we can get you that information. My understanding, it is a continuous operation where they drop the trailer in the parking area. Here you'd be backing into a loading dock, and roughly during the course of the day, maybe 25 to 30 trucks. So they would be isolated and not in an open area where there'd be more of a noise dispersion. But we'll look at that. We'll get you information on that.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board so far?
Yeah, I had a question. For the benefit of, I know we have a lot of people from the public interested in this building, and could you just explain to us what an e-commerce distribution center is and what they do?
Sure. So this facility here is really the last stop before packages, you know, are delivered to your house. Or if you order something online, you know, it originates from, you know, a large warehouse, much larger than this, with many trucks, right? Everything gets sorted out and it goes off to different distribution and sorting centers, and ultimately ends up at a facility like this, where
Hey, John, it's Michael Kelleher. Would you like me to explain? Is that better if I explained how this process works?
Through the chair, this is Michael Kelleher from the operator.
Okay, great. Michael, why don't you go ahead and give an explanation. Thanks, John.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As I said, my name is Michael Kelleher. The way this what we call last mile delivery station is, as John was discussing, is that this is where the ultimate your package arrives. It's last stop in the transition from your ordering to where it's delivered. So, as we stated, line haul trucks come in. Majority of those come in at the nighttime or in the overnight period, where they're received, sorted, and then put into essentially hockey bags sized bags that are then loaded onto vans the next morning. And then those vans leave after 9:30 to start leaving around 10 o'clock in the morning and go out to the delivery throughout the 45-minute distribution from the site there in Westborough, if that's helpful.
Now, does that mean the majority of your workers are there at night doing the sorting?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. A majority of the workers come in starting about midnight or 1 a.m. and then they work receiving the packages from those line hauls, sorting them, and getting them ready for the deliveries the next morning. Then the van drivers come in, take the package, load up, and then depart after the morning rush hour.
Okay, and so then essentially your workforce leaves at that point?
Some will, yes, some will leave after packages are sent out, but then there's operations throughout the day. There's operations pretty much 24/7 at the site. The majority of the employees work at the overnight hours.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, may I also, Bob Buckley again, it's my understanding that the current trucking operation is a 24-hour operation. And as I indicated earlier, that the trucks are being dropped in an open environment. So to the extent that we can mitigate sound by the design here, I think we'll be able to discuss that. But my understanding, it is 24 hours.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. All right. Any other questions from the board? Tim, I haven't heard from you yet, or no? Okay. Why don't we continue with the presentation and then we'll get to the public comments at the end.
Very good. Let me go back to that color rendering for a minute. I can get the message across here. So from a stormwater management standpoint, we have 4 infiltration basins that we're proposing. So we have these 2. I'll go back to my color board for a second here. So these 2 in blue, right, take a lot of the parking lot stormwater, and then we'll discharge to, there's an existing one here, as I mentioned before, that we're going to be enlarging. All of these provide treatment, infiltration, recharge the groundwater to meet the stormwater standards. There's currently a stone-lined drainage swale that discharges the majority of the stormwater from the site. We're going to maintain that. That flows down into the wetland where there's an existing stormwater basin, actually in the wetlands, shown here in this dashed blue line, and everything ultimately discharges to the north off-site to the property. There's also another proposed infiltration basin on the southern portion of the site that will also handle parking lot stormwater in discharge in the same fashion through an existing culvert here under the access road from 2400 Computer Drive. And again, to the north, that portion of the stormwater actually bypasses the existing basin, but also all basically ends up collecting into this drainage conveyance system to the north. Also, roughly here in this parking lot will be an underground chamber type detention system, which will handle stormwater from the building. We do also have a perimeter foundation drain that will discharge as well.
Mark, could I just ask a quick question?
Go ahead, Hazel.
All right. Now, you said that your parking is going to be reduced by about a half. Are you going to remove any blacktop and reseed it so it becomes ground?
Yes, a bit. We're shifting a lot of things around, right? So we actually have a little bit more impervious area under the proposed conditions, but I'm trying to get back to my original slide here. You know, for example, right, there's a good bit of pavement here in this this lower truck parking lot here, and if I switch to the next screen, you'll see that we're kind of turning that into a nice grassy area, which we figure would be perfect for snow storage, things like that. So we're again we're taking a lot of demolishing all of the current pavement out there, and redoing the site with new. We're adding lots of landscaping, lots of good green space, but technically we have a little bit of an increase in impervious area. It's about a 1% increase over the site.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of decreasing the amount of impervious area, if at all possible. So
Well, we're mitigating the slight increase with those 4 stormwater basins in the underground system. I do have some numbers here to show our decrease in stormwater runoff. So we analyze a few different design points, and I won't bore everyone to death with the stormwater analysis model, but you see this is the comparison, the delta comparison between the preconditioned flow and the post-conditioned flows for the different storm events here, and where we have a fairly significant decrease in most of these events. We're doing that through means of holding back water, detaining it, and recharging it through infiltration. So we're actually it's quite a betterment to the site from a stormwater standpoint, and not only the flow rates, also the water quality. We're adding in multiple proprietary separator units, which handle total suspended solids. They clean the water to meet and exceed all of the stormwater standards.
Question on this, Mark, if I may.
Go ahead, Jim.
Go back to my slide.
John, just quick question on that chart. For clarity, is the design points refer to different locations on the plan? Is that what those mean?
Yes, they do. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So some of these refer to the ultimate design point that I mentioned before. Everything goes to the north, and there's a few different culverts on site that we wanted to make sure we weren't even though we're reducing peak flows at our ultimate design point, we wanted to analyze the different culverts on site to make sure that we weren't increasing flow at those points. So.
Great, thanks, John.
Yes.
So I feel like we're asking you to jump around a little bit in your presentation, so I'd like to get back on track on the presentation.
Sure thing.
Maybe we can get through the presentation and just catalog everyone's questions to the end so that we're not jumping around so much. And
yep, absolutely.
So give everyone here a chance to ask questions. And I know there's a lot of people from the public that may have questions.
Yep. So that's a good segue from stormwater to wrap up that conversation for the moment. And I'll touch on utilities. And so there's a couple different water connections. There's an 8-inch. Luckily, it's a large existing office building, so there's a lot of options for utilities out here, right? This was a data center for years and years, so there's plenty of power, plenty of internet data, plenty of water capacity, and sanitary capacity. So we're taking water. There's an 8-inch existing 8-inch line here on the west, and there's an existing 10-inch water service here on the east. We're going to tie into both of those, for redundancy, and we're going to have a 10-inch water loop around the entire building with hydrants branching off from those. We're going to, sorry, that. There we go. Zoom in a little bit. So blue's water. Green here is gas, so we're just connecting to the existing gas service up here to the east, running that to the building here to a meter bank. We're taking this yellow here, if you can see that. There's a few different existing electrical services on site. We're taking it from the main point of origin here, just off of Technology Drive, with a new duct bank there to come around to the western portion of the site to a new transformer. And the site will also be equipped with a hookup for a generator. So not a permanent generator, but there is a mechanism to, a transfer switch to be able to hook a generator in and feed the building very quickly if need be. Orange here is our telecom line. So again, existing from a point here, just north of Computer Drive, we're going to run a new telecom system through the site down here, and then this magenta line is our sanitary sewer. So we're going to come out of the building with a gravity sewer, but the building itself, sits down a bit lower than the entrance to Computer Drive, where all the sanitary goes now. So right now, there's actually 2 pump stations on site. There's a force main. See this dashed magenta line here. So we're going to tie in. There's an existing force main there. We're going to tie in to. We'll put a new force main clean out there, and we'll have a new pump station here. And that will have a 24-hour storage capacity for any sort of emergency situation. Okay. Any questions on utilities?
Why don't we keep moving, John, and save the questions to the end, just so I don't want to keep interrupting you.
Sounds good. Is our erosion control plan. Do want to mention that we filed for a notice of intent with conservation. So we're going to be going before conservation in I think next week, actually. So we'll be talking about stormwater and erosion control with them as well. High level here, we're proposing silt fence and silt socks around the whole perimeter, a series of stone check dams to make sure that we're limiting any sort of potential for erosion. Any stockpiles will be outside of the 100-foot buffers. We'll be very smart about how we stage the construction and limit any potential for erosion. We have a nice planting plan meeting the zoning bylaws, which requires I believe it's 1 tree for every 12 parking spaces, which I think is great. So we have a nice it's an industrial site, obviously, but it's going to be a very nice looking site, right, with a lot of shade trees in the parking areas. Kind of dressing up the front of the building where you arrive. The employees arrive here in their parking spaces, and we have a few kind of nice amenities up front. It's a little seating area for employees to go out and have lunch. They can wait for a ride to come pick them up, that sort of thing. So we've got some nice fences and a little more decorative planting out there. Certainly a lot of shade trees, in the parking stalls, and then importantly maintaining our our natural buffer to the residents as well. Site lighting plan, and I realize the plan itself is a little hazy here, but my intention wasn't to zoom in on every light pole or foot candle level, but I wanted to show you that we were again very thoughtful about how we're proposing the lighting here. Being sensitive to the fact that we do, abut a residential district. Maximum 25-foot high mounting heights here, right? So we'll keep light levels down. Everything is shielded, dark sky compliant. We have 0-foot candles at the wetland line, so not just the property line, but at the at the wetland line. So well, hundreds of feet inside of the property line, we have a 0-foot candle level. Okay. And then we touched on this, before with the traffic. This is just another quick summary. So you see the existing here, and then this is the proposed, right? And the thing I want to kind of really point out is the peak hours. So you have your AM peak hours where currently it's an office building. It's really between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. It's really, really busy. And again, between 5 and 6 p.m. We're greatly reducing by 264 trips in the morning going in, and by reducing by 286 trips in the afternoon going out. Again, because of the operations, really, it's again, you see over here the summary with the off hours operations for the site. And that was the stormwater chart we looked at before. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Mr. Chairman, would welcome any questions from the board if you'd like, and if we can't respond, we'll get you the answer.
Thank you, John and Bob. I appreciate that. Why don't we turn to the board first for questions? Jim Ball, do you have any questions? Anything further?
I think, Mark, just for it appears this way, but for clarification, you're adding 3 bases versus the one that exists currently. Is that correct? So from a stormwater standpoint, it appears it's a significant enhancement, as you've alluded to in the chart. But those are additions as well as the mitigation underground that doesn't exist currently?
Yes, that's correct.
Jim, is
that was my only clarification, Mark.
Okay. Hazel, did you have anything else?
Not anything else at the moment.
Tim, Kayla.
While we didn't cover it in any detail, I just wanted to applaud the applicant for the clean energy elements of the design and the retrofit. It's something we should really accent to the rest of the town. It's progressive. It's what we need in new business tenants. So appreciate the efforts in that regard.
Who did I miss? Hazel? No, Peter. Sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question. When you mentioned you were going to do the snow plowing up to the the green space on the top lot, can you put up the sewer? So up here, it's up there. You mentioned that you're going to push the snow from all the lots up there. Where does that drain out to? Can I just see that at the other slide?
Yeah, not all of the snow. We're always looking for snow storage areas, and there's some other flat areas on site, right? And if there is some vacant parking stalls, snow could be stored there as well. But this, we're thinking this is a good flat area where any excess snow, could be stored there. So that would drain through. There's a wetland, the wetland channel that runs through here. Everything runs down to the west and down through this basin and out here.
Peter, anything else?
That's all right now.
So I was going to ask a little bit about the green technology in the building and solar readiness, because that was something the selectmen had brought up. And I don't know if you can expand on that, John, now, or we'll hear more about that at future meetings.
Yeah, I can speak. I can speak to it, and then if there are specific questions, we can get back to you, or Michael Kelleher maybe would want to elaborate too, depending on specific questions. But so, all of the van parking spaces that I mentioned before, those 847 van parking spaces are all going to be electric vehicle ready. So we're running conduit. The plan for this tenant is to have, in the future, all of their delivery vehicles be electric. So we're planning for that now. On day one, you may not see the charging stations out there, but that is the goal. And the building itself is structurally designed to be able to accept solar panels in the future as well.
Okay. I think that's important, that as you transition to electric vehicles, that you generate as much electricity on site as possible through solar. How tall is the building?
Building is 49 feet. Give me 1 minute here.
45.
So you have room on top to put solar panels if you need.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're under the zoning by 15 feet or something like that.
Okay, that's really
we're allowed to go up to 60, and we're going to be at 46 feet.
Okay. I had another question then about the vehicles. You had mentioned, I think actually Bob had mentioned excise tax revenues. Are all of those vehicles going to be registered in Westborough?
That would be the intent. Yep. We can address that.
Correct.
Okay. That would obviously be important. as I don't think the goods will be taxable. Personal property, will that be taxable? Bob, do you know the answer?
I'm sorry, I missed the
Is
first.
personal property that's going through there be taxable, or is it? It's
Not that's flowing through, but personal property on the site that is used for processing of materials under mass law would be subject to the personal property tax.
Okay. So the excise tax would be significant revenue for the town as long as those vehicles are registered in town.
Yeah, and that's recurring. That would be on an annual basis. Yeah. And that's additive.
Yeah, I had also received a letter from representative of the Community Land Trust about inquiring about a possible trail easement on the western portion of the site on an old, the old supply road that runs from Smith down to north-south on from the north side on Smith Street down to the southern boundary of the lot. And I'm just wondering, it may be the first you've heard of it. We don't need an answer right now, but I'm hoping that you'll be willing, as you were at Otis Street, to grant a public trail easement. It wouldn't be a multi-use path. It would just be a walking trail easement for the charm bracelet purposes.
That's important to know. We'll bring that up. We should discuss that also with the Conservation Commission when we appear before them.
Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with the charm bracelet, so it's a walking trail that circumvents town. So hopefully that can be something we can obtain as part of this process.
Mr. Chairman, I do think, I'm sorry, I want to make one other point, Mr. Chairman. We're not asking for tax increment financing or any municipal financing here. I think that we can be leveraged by being a participant in a true public-private partnership through doing the infrastructure study to position the town, as the town has done in the past with the MassWorks grants, to address other needs in this region, because I do think there's going to be a unique opportunity. So I've been working with Jim to work out a scope of that study. So
yeah, Bob, again, I'm bringing up the easement only because you're here in front of us. I'm hoping that we'll be able to obtain that for the land trust, but an easement of that sort would be considered open space under zoning, so I don't think it would have a tremendous impact. Doesn't appear to be in a section of the site that would impact your applicant's.
Yeah, we'll certainly look at that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just something I wanted to bring up at some point, and no time like the present. Last thing I was hoping to get from you, Bob, or from the applicant, is a list of similar facilities in the state, both established and recently established, so that we can maybe reach out to those towns and see if there's any issues with this type of distribution fulfillment center that we're not maybe not thinking of. So I'm hoping you can get and
we will do.
Hopefully they'll give us some positive feedback on the impacts of this type of facility.
We will certainly do that, Mr. Chairman. We'll get you a list of what's unique about this facility, and perhaps some of the facilities don't have this advantage, is that our van parking, et cetera, is on site. It's not at a satellite site that has to be brought in daily. It will be here, so employees come in, they get out of their personal vehicle, and the vans will be on site. So it's not as if you have an off-site location where people are shuttling back and forth, which is a tremendous traffic enhancement.
Good. Okay. So again, I think that if we could identify similar facilities and what the differences might be, such as on-site versus off-site van parking, that we can.
Absolutely.
So that, I think, is everything I had. I just wanted to ask Jim Robbins and Lisa, Jim first. Jim, do you have any questions on the presentation or comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you show the plan that has the zoning compliance table?
One moment.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm trying to see your open space percentage.
Here we go, right here. So required 60%, and we're at 63.9.
Great. That's even with the 1% increase in impervious.
Correct. Yeah. So existing it's 65, and so proposed 60. Just call it 64. So that is in line with that 1% increase in impervious.
So the minimum that you have required is 60 and you're at 63. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just having a little trouble reading the screen from my laptop. You mentioned the lighting earlier, and I think that's great. Your plan for the lighting, less than 1 foot candle at the vegetative board line is great. One thing you mentioned was your lighting is 25 feet. It has to be 20 feet maximum. I know that'll probably require you to have more light emplacements, but that's the town standard is 20 feet, full cutoff. And you mentioned it would be full cutoff. That's great. That should reduce any light, even visibility. And just for the public that's viewing this, lighting is a tricky thing. The town requires that there be no foot candles, which means no light spilling beyond the perimeter of the property. From their lighting plan, there'll be no light spilling beyond the vegetated border of the property. So you have to think about lighting on site as you would think about lighting on your neighbor's property, or even as you might think about the moon at night. You can see the moon at night. That doesn't mean you can read a book by the moon at night. At full moon, you might be able to read a book at night when there is snow cover, but that doesn't mean that there's spill from a neighboring property onto your property. That's an important point, because you may be able to look out your back door and see the light on your neighbor's property, but that doesn't mean that that light is spilling onto your property. It's visible, but it hasn't changed the light on your property. So thank you. That's an important point.
And through the chair, we're going to be dark sky compliant also.
Bob, can I ask there's current light poles there that are going to be replaced, and what height are those? Are those higher than the 20 feet standard, or do you know?
Don't know offhand. John, do you know if
I want to say they are. We haven't measured them. It's more visual. We can find that answer out though.
I think it'd be beneficial to know if they're actually going to be lower than what's currently there. That might alleviate some concerns from neighbors. All right, sorry, Jim, go back to you. And I know Peter Bouchard has his hand raised. So,
on the workers parking, I applaud you for providing EV connections for all of the vans. I think that's great. You're obviously saving yourself a lot of money by preparing that now. For your worker parking, you should also have EV accessibility. It doesn't have to be every single spot, but you should have an adequate amount of charging stations. I don't have a standard for you to tell you need to have so many per parking spaces. However, I think we can talk about that between your site engineer and Bob Buckley. We should talk about how many EV spaces you'll have for your workers. Also, the public facility study, which Bob mentioned earlier, he did deliver the name of a firm that does that type of study. I'd like to explore that further with Bob, as well as explore language that would be appropriate for making sure that the vans that are stored on site are charged excise tax here in Westborough. We'll have to look at some of that language. I know that other communities that have fulfillment centers have looked at that, so I want to review what other communities have done there as well. I know I'll have more questions as this continues, but those are my questions for now.
Thanks, Jim. Peter Bouchard, I see your hand raised, so let's get back to you.
Yeah, I just have a question on the traffic. Say if this is implemented and put into place, will there be continuous traffic studies? I just want to make sure, that, up front we have a traffic study and that all checks out, but then down the line, we're not actually evaluating how much traffic is going through this location. So I think it would be important if something like this were to be approved, that there's a way that we can manage the traffic flow and make sure it's aligned to what is being proposed.
Through the chair, could I respond?
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, we have had discussions with Jim on that, and I share your sentiments. I think that a post-operational stabilization traffic study is always a prudent course of action. What we would propose, working with Jim and the board, is a period of time when the site gets stabilized. By stabilized, I mean operational, and people figure out how to get to and fro and how they're driving, et cetera, and take a look at it then to address any issues that may have arisen, and gives us an opportunity, if there have to be any adjustments or corrective action, to take it at that point in time.
I think that's extremely, sorry, Mark. Yeah, I think that's extremely important, because I think there's a neighboring town that put in a similar site like this, and now they're coming back and they're having some issues. So I think it's important that we do make sure that we're tracking the traffic. So I do appreciate your response, Bob.
Yeah, so Bob, along those lines, I realize that most of the traffic will be van traffic, but you're going to have some big trucks coming in delivering the goods, and I just want to make sure that those trucks are coming off of 495 and using Route 9 and not taking local roads.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Where they're coming from. I don't really want them on East Main Street or Lyman Street, or we get a lot of trucks through the Rotary as it is. So I just would like to make sure that they're all going to be routed off in 495 directly to the site, and not alternative routes.
Well, we'll get some information on the most on that the approach and exit, and also what we can do to make sure that the potential drivers are aware of what the required circulation patterns are in and around the site.
Okay, great.
And Mr. Chair, just to confirm, our trucks, the line hauls cannot use non-DOT approved roads. Their GPSs will not allow them to use any roads that are not approved for line haul traffic.
Okay, that's a little bit of a relief, but I think some of the surface roads are approved for DOT traffic, and I just would hate to see traffic increase on Lyman Street. Again, I'm not sure.
And we can work through that, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I wanted to ask Lisa Lane, the town engineer, if she had any questions about the presentation. Lisa, are you still on the?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, no, I don't have any questions at this time. I've actually had the opportunity to look at the plans already. We will be having an outside consultant review them with us overseeing them. So I have no questions now.
Okay. Jim Robbins, so I know we got a letter from the Board of Selectmen. We're going to ask other departments for comments the way we would on any site plan. We haven't received any back yet, though, have we?
We actually have received several.
Okay.
There are no substantive comments of concern at this time. As you noted, we received a letter from the Board of Selectmen in support of the project and asking that the applicant consider solar on the site. That was already discussed this evening. That letter came from the Board of Selectmen today. We have several department letters which will be read into the record when the time comes.
Okay. All right. So I think that's everything, unless we can turn to the public for comments. Is there? And then at the end, I'll give the board another chance if anything comes up. But I see Larry Rosenthal with your hand raised. So if you could unmute yourself, Larry, and just, again, I have to ask everybody to please introduce yourself and state your address for the record as I recognize you. So Larry, go ahead.
Sure. Larry Rosenthal. I'm at 21 Smith Street. I just want people to be aware that there's significant noise pollution from the existing trucks that are there now, especially with air brakes and when they back up. And I'm concerned also about the light from the trucks as they unload pointing directly across that field. And in addition, there's a helipad there on the eastern part of that property. And in the past, helicopters were landing at all hours of the day and at night. So I have a question as to what will happen to that.
Okay, so I'm going to ask John, I guess, or Bob, whoever you think is appropriate to answer that about, is the helipad going to remain, and will the truck lights, headlights be visible, or will there be some type of screening to prevent those lights being seen from the neighboring residential?
Yeah, the helipad is not going to be there anymore. We're going to remove that completely. So that's the first answer. The second answer about the truck headlights, again, you know, currently the truck parking area is quite a bit closer to Smith Street than we're proposing it to be, right? It's currently I think you can still see my screen back here, way to the north. We're moving that by a few hundred feet closer to the building, and we're maintaining that tree buffer, and again, reducing truck traffic by over 100 trucks per day. So I think you're going to see a dramatic benefit to the project in that regard.
If I could add one other thing, sorry, Bob. If I could add one more thing is, if you notice the parking lots to the 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock will be full of vans in the overnight hours more often than not. So those vans will block truck or line haul truck lights coming out of them before they get to that buffer as well.
Larry, does that answer your question? Or do you have a follow-up?
Yes, so in the wintertime, that vegetation is very thin and sparse, and we can see everything that goes on back there. And that upper lot is significantly elevated compared to the lower lot. So I don't know that trucks will block the light from unloading docks.
Okay, so the large lot closest to Smith Street is elevated.
No, it's lower.
It's lower?
Lower.
Okay. So
Perhaps you could beef up your landscape. Beef up the landscape in the parking lot where the elevation changes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we will look at that in terms of where the cursor is now also, maybe providing some screening at that location. We'll look at the issue. I think I understand it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. If we added some screening there, that would be.
Okay, let's revisit that with a redesign at a future meeting. Okay. Larry, did you have anything else on that?
And just the noise pollution from, air brakes backing up and the beeping from trucks. All night. All night.
Okay.
We'll look at the noise ordinance and see what we can do to mitigate any of that.
All right, so let's give them a chance to respond to that, Larry.
Thank you very much.
The next person I see is Pat's iPhone. Pat, if you could just unmute yourself and state your name and address.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, my name is Patrick Bodden. I'm representing number 1 and number 2 Technology Drive for eClinical Works. I had a couple of questions or points, and I can put those together and you can respond to them, or we can do them individually. But kind of along the lines of what Larry's talking about, I was also wondering what could be done to mitigate idling of these tractor trailers when they come in. I'm really surprised that there's only 30 tractor trailer parking spots. And I'm just wondering if someone could talk a little bit about that flow of those tractor trailers and what would happen if there's ever a backlog or if the operation were to change a little bit. I'm imagining that in that case, we might have tractor trailers standing by on the roadways surrounding the property, and what the impact of that might be. And also the shade trees that are being talked about are probably not going to be would be in conflict with tractor trailers driving on those roads. So you may have some issues with those as they get older. And then my last question was during construction, what can be done to clean trucks coming and going on the construction site to keep computer drive clean and free from debris from those.
So it's often a condition of site plan that they have to clean the streets periodically to remove any debris from the demolition. And I think we can ask Jim Robbins to address that, or the applicant.
Generally, you have to submit a demolition plan that will control the sequencing of the demolition and the removal and the dust control, all those usual conditions. I would also like to comment on the idling. Under Mass DEP regulations, you cannot have idling for more than 5 minutes. So to the extent that there were vehicles idling more than 5 minutes, that's a violation of state guidelines, and there are consequences for that.
Bob, you have 30 truck parking spaces and 17 bays, right? So I don't know if you or Michael may be the one to address this about the process and whether there will be any backup of trucks as you unload.
I'll defer to Michael if you want, Mike.
The line hauls do come in, as we said, during the overnight. Majority of them come out during the overnight hours, and so they are unloaded and then they depart. So we don't typically have any backups. I mean, obviously, if there's a snowstorm or something that affects that, we'll have to adjust our operations. But typically, we do not. We spread them out, so only one or two comes every half hour. So there's plenty of docks to unload those trucks while they're parked during the daytime, during the overnight hours. So we do not because the line hauls are spread out so much during the overnight hours. We do not typically run any time of any, as you said, backing up around the property of those line hauls.
Okay. And then I think the last question had to do with the shade trees and whether the tractor trailers would impact those shade trees as they grow. And I'm not sure who can do that.
I would imagine that we'll, along with the landlord, work on ensuring that we do proper maintenance of the facility so that we do not run into those issues of tree trimming and so forth.
Pat, does that answer your questions, or did you have a follow-up?
It does. If you could just follow up quickly and just clarify the quantity of the tractor trailers. You talked about them in the overnight hour, 2 or 3 every half hour. That doesn't sound like very many trucks over the course of a night. So maybe you could just clarify the quantity of trucks.
Again, our typical normal business is we run between 30 to 35 line hauls in a 24-hour period, where a high majority of those are done in the, as you said, from the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. type process. So that's 8 hours. So as I said, a high majority of those come in that time. So you may get 1 to 2 an hour. And that's the max, again, depending on traffic and so forth, but that's how we plan our line hauls. And I think we have 17 bays there, so they would not be backed up. So even if 16 came at once, which is half, we would have enough bays to unload those line hauls. Excuse me.
So, Michael, as a follow-up to that, then you said typically. What about December?
Yeah, our holiday season we do increase based on customer ordering in that period. We call it our peak season. And I believe that's been addressed in the traffic study. If not, we can ensure that that is in there as well, Mr. Chairman.
So I guess that would be the time when foliage would be limited. So I think that we really look at the screening
Yes.
issue and maybe come up with a solution that'll satisfy the neighbors. Okay.
And as Mr. Buckley said, we're happy to look at that and to address that for the neighbors.
Right, great. Thank you. I appreciate that commitment. Pat,
So I think for 30 trucks, it would be 2 to 4 an hour, not 1 to 2 an hour to get to those numbers in an 8-hour overnight period. So I'll just make that statement, but that's all for me.
I would just, like I said the majority of the line hauls come that time. Some will come during the day, as indicated on the traffic pattern to, due to a number of reasons.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
You're
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Thank you, Pat. Next is John Ziegler. If you could just unmute yourself, state your name and address, please.
Yeah, John Ziegler, 23 Smith Street. I have several questions. The first one is, I read in the memo that there'll be about 120 vans departing every 20 minutes. That's one van every 10 seconds leaving the property. I assume there has to be another 10 coming in at the same time. So that's basically vans coming every 5 seconds to or from the property all day long. How is that going to get onto Route 9? I don't understand that.
Who wants to address that?
I'll first address the numbers. As we said, our vans dispatch it from approximately 10 a.m. to about 11:30 a.m. That's all that they dispatch. They dispatch in the morning, and that's it. Then they return 9 to 10 hours later. And the vans are parked, are parked on the lot. And what they do is they go to a stage. So when a van driver, they drive their car in, they take their van and they go to a staging spot. And then once the facility is ready for that first, it's actually 2 waves of 60 because it's on both sides of the property. Once they're prepared, once the loaders essentially are prepared, those 60 on each side move into underneath the canopy where they're loaded, and then the next 60 who are on site in those vans on each side will then go into the loading area. So the vans are not coming in and out. It's all one-way traffic. I hope that answers your question. And then how they get to Route 9, I can't speak to that, but they're not all going to go onto Route 9. They'll be doing local deliveries. They could go to Westborough, Northborough, down to Sherburne or something like that, so that they're not all going to go onto Route 9 to 495 or to Framingham-Natick area.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that answer, but the only way to get off a Computer Drive is Route 9.
Okay, I'm not exactly familiar with the geography of the site there.
Okay, and the other thing is that's still every van every 10 seconds for an hour and a half. How is that going to handle that? I don't understand Route 9. If I was a business off of Computer Drive, if I was a restaurant there, or if I was the donut shop there, I'd be very concerned with this.
Yeah, so I guess I would, I think the traffic study might have a comparison to this volume of traffic relative to rush hour at an office park, say, and the fact that this is not from 8 to 9 in the morning when typical rush hour is in that area. But we do have a traffic study, and we'll have it reviewed by a peer to determine what the traffic impacts will be. So I can certainly share that with you as that process.
Right. And then my other comment would be is, I think Peter brought this up earlier, I would highly suggest that they move the truck traffic over to the other side of the property, much closer to Route 9 than to the residential area. The backing up of trucks, I don't care what you have to do, you're gonna have to back up at least 2 trucks an hour all night long into those loading docks. And I really don't want to hear that every night. Okay, so if we can redesign this property so that the trucks stay to the south side of the property, more towards the Route 9, more towards the industrial area, that would make 100% more sense than having those trucks either giving light pollution and noise pollution to the residents.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we'll be prepared to address the logistics of how the trucks enter and exit, and the issues that are associated with accessing the local roads. So, and I do think it's important to remember that today there are 260 major truck trips from that NFI operation that occur daily. So I think that if we graphically show the ebb and flow of traffic and how it will be handled, that may be a very powerful presentation for people's concerns, or addressing people's concerns.
So Mr. Buckley, I would have to say is right now it is a nuisance. I've been living here 22 years. The last 5 years when you guys started putting those trucks there, it has been a nuisance all night long. Okay, so it's not okay the way it is today. And so maybe get better, but it's still not okay.
Okay, John, so I think the applicants heard your concern there, and they're offering to give us more graphics on how they propose to deal with that traffic, and they've also offered some screening, but we'll have to explore other options as we go. But we certainly hear your concern there. We're not trying to, we're so early in this process that we're not going to come up with a solution right away for you.
Okay. Like I said, I would just hope that they would consider moving the truck traffic to the other side of the property.
Okay.
My last point here, and I know it's getting late. How do we ensure that the light pollution or the light spillover, I know Jim was saying about what spillover is, this and that, is actually done by what they're saying? Because I know 9 Technology Drive, which is right behind my house, they just redesigned that property just 2 years ago. And now I don't even have to turn on a light to go to my bathroom at night. Spillover is horrendous, right? And so, A, how can we get that fixed? But B, how do we make sure that this applicant won't do the same thing? Because I assume you guys approved it with 0 candlelight going past the wetlands and the buffers and everything else, but that clearly didn't happen.
Yeah.
That could be objectively measured and enforced. So we will put that in the permit.
Yeah, there's certainly ways to measure spillover and scientific means to determine that they're complying with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deborah Ziegler, John's wife. I had a couple questions, if I could just jump in.
Go ahead, Deborah.
So everybody keeps saying, oh, it's so great, we're going to have so many less trucks. Well, we're going to have 3 or 4 times as many vehicles 24/7. So don't think that fewer trucks is a benefit. It's not. It's noisy. They all will back up. They all will have exhaust. They all will make noise, and they all will have headlights all night long. So everybody keeps saying that's great. I think that's a red herring. It's untrue. So the second thing is, how long does it take to unload one of those tractor trailers?
Michael, can you answer that?
I don't know the specific number, but it's about 30 to 45 minutes. I would estimate.
So every truck stop and rest area I've ever traveled to, when the trucks pull over for resting or eating, they leave the trucks running.
We do not leave our trucks running. We are not. That is against our corporate policy. They do not run. They turn off and turn their lights off, ma'am.
Okay, so the trucks are going to be completely off while they're loading and unloading?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And they back in so that the light spillage from the building is encompassed from the line haul. So there's no lights coming out from the building.
So is there anything that can be done about the beeping? That's very loud.
I can't commit to that. That it is an OSHA requirement, so it's a government requirement for the beeping. But there are mitigations that we've looked at in the past, and we can discuss that we can bring that back to the board next time, ma'am.
We're sort of north of, the main drag here. But as Larry and John mentioned, the noise and the lights are obtrusive to us already up here at the end of Smith Street. So the sound buffer doesn't seemingly exist going north up that field. It might be directly by the houses at the other end of the street, but there is no mitigation, no buffer in the plan that I saw that prevents all of that sound from blowing up the hill to our yard that is currently happening. And it does come up with the wind. So I would like someone to maybe look at that. And then the last thing is that little green snow storage area that was supposedly draining into wetlands. So the oil and the gasoline dripping and the salt and all of the debris from all the trucks and vehicles that end up in the snow, what you're telling me is it's going into our wetlands? It's just going to go into the swale and then go down into the little streams that run through?
So anybody care to address that concern about snow storage and any contamination related?
We'll look at the plan and make sure it's properly routed through the storm system and treated to meet all the required standards.
All right, because during this meeting tonight, that little top corner of green where you put the snow, everybody sort of agreed, yeah, it's just going to go in that swale. So anyway,
Mark?
That concerned me.
Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to bring up Conservation Commission will look at that in depth during their review. And as well as when we do our review, we will be looking at that. No untreated surface water is to go into the wetlands. And it all is pre-treated in some way according to the stormwater regulations. So it's definitely going to be looked at. It'll be looked at by DPW and by Conservation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Next, I have Andy Konigsberg. Andy, if you could just unmute yourself and state your name for this.
Yeah, Andy Konigsberg, 3 Smith Street. I got some questions about, or a comment about stormwater. When we've had major downpours up there off of Technology Drive, I have seen in the stream where all this stormwater is going to be discharging to, I've seen standing waves. Literally, the volume of water coming out of there was tremendous. Is the stormwater management plan here is, I know you've shown substantial decreases in rate of runoff. How are you going to address volume of runoff, since the current stormwater standards in Westborough require not only peak rate control, but also peak volume control? How are you going to manage that?
We're managing, we're meeting all the standards for recharge as well. So we have infiltration basins on site that will manage the peak flows and the volumes. Okay. We'll make sure we look at the volumes to make sure we're meeting the town standards. The state standards don't require, they don't have a volume requirement to match volumes, but typically volumes are generally matched due to the fact that you need to meet the the infiltration rates.
Yeah, well, our local standards require no change in volume. Just so you guys are aware of that. So I want to make sure, because I've seen massive runoff during large storms. So please take that into account.
Yep.
Andy, you had another issue?
Well, the issue with, going to go back to the issue of light pollution from the trucks. As I said, in the winter, there's no real vegetation buffer. The nice green area from the bottom of the field up to the area up to the parking lots really doesn't do anything. So you guys gonna, I believe we would certainly want you to look at some kind of screening or non-tree screening behind where the trucks are gonna park to, so that we're not seeing headlights all night long. So
Yeah, I think we definitely heard that issue, Andy.
Yeah.
We've asked them to respond to that, so.
yeah. So those were my comments off the top of my head. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And remind everybody, this is just the first of multiple hearings. We're gonna definitely have a chance for everybody to speak again. Please, you know, if you heard your question asked already, you know, please try not to be redundant for everyone's sake, but certainly want to make sure everybody gets heard. And Andy, that wasn't directed at you, so don't get mad at me. Joe Breen, you were next.
Good evening. Thank you. Joe Breen, 14 Smith Street. I do want to touch on about the noise and light pollution that is day and night, which everyone has talked about. The warehouse location, the elevation is elevated, and the way the trucks are positioned now, that light is going to shine. It'll be glowing through the neighborhood. So if they could move that facility and the trucks onto the Route 9 side, that would help tremendously. And if not, if the whole perimeter could be lined with like a 30-foot high sound barrier wall, which would help with light pollution and noise pollution to channel that, you know, vertically up into the sky versus towards the whole neighborhood. I think that's something that the town has to be very strict on proposing or enforcing some type of perimeter to give the residents some type of relief from this 24/7 Amazon operation that's going to be built here. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I think the applicants already said that they're going to look at screening of some type, and we'll wait to hear what their proposal is on that.
Right, but something more robust, like a highway, like a
yeah,
true industrial screening, not a deciduous.
Definitely heard your suggestion.
Thank you.
And we'll keep that in mind when they come back with their proposal, and hopefully it'll be in line with what you're thinking of, or at least alleviate that concern.
Thank you.
Bob Gendron. I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's names right. Please correct me and bear with me if I
You are, and thank you. Bob Gendron, 11 Brady Road Extension. So, and again, not to be redundant, but one of the things that really wasn't discussed much was that access road. And we're to the west of the project. And that access road is very noisy, and the vegetation on that area is very light. And I am concerned about the noise pollution and the lighting for the access road as well as the project in itself. The other point too is not to be redundant on the snow, but we are to the west of the project, and that too, the water can come down into that part of the drain basin as well. And that's a concern I know from a couple of my neighbors as well. And did have a question too about the dumpsters and nighttime activity. You know, we hear it up the hill on Computer Drive now, where some of these dumpsters are being emptied out at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and you can hear them banging around as they're being emptied out at a very early hour in the morning.
Okay. Here's some of the same issues, but can somebody respond to the dumpster issue, or is that something we need more research on? I'm not sure.
I think we would need to do more research, but typically, that, as you know, that's, as we talked about, that's when we're getting a lot of our deliveries, so we don't want other trucks at the same time. So I can't speak exactly, but it makes sense for us to have those at truck dumpsters come at different times of the day.
John, can you address the dumpsters' locations in relation to the residential properties? Is that something you're prepared to do? Or? You're muted, though. I can't hear.
Yes, let me put my screen back up here. So there's only one dumpster on site, and it's back here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think the dumpster concern may be may have some validity given that location. So maybe we could get a response from you to that issue at a future meeting.
Yes.
Okay. I need to get. Can you put your screen back down so I can see the chat? Okay. Sorry, the hands. Great. Joe, was that everything you had? I don't want to cut you short. All right, I'm going to move on to Ken Kincaid. Ken, you just unmute yourself and name and address?
Hi, Mark. Ken Kincaid, 19 Smith Street. One thing I'm concerned with, you were talking about the traffic at 9:30 leaving not being a big deal, but at 6 o'clock when they come back, Route 9 from 495 going into town is a parking lot. And as people start to go back to work after the offices reopen, all those Amazon trucks coming back down Route 9, turning onto Computer Drive, are going to cause a major backup past 495. You say they're all coming in at 6 o'clock, that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, Ken, I think he said that it would be 9 to 10 hours later. So from 10 o'clock, 9 hours is well after the evening rush.
The first vans will not return until at least 7 o'clock is what our schedule says, but a very minimal of them. Most will be coming in after 8 o'clock at night.
Okay, so they're coming in after 8 o'clock at night, and then the trucks start coming in at 10 o'clock and backing up 3 to 4 per hour. Would you say 100 per night? So you're going to have a lot of noise from 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock on, aren't you? Yes.
I don't know the answer to that. Michael, do you want to answer that, or some Bob?
Again, I don't. There will not be 3 to 4 coming in at night every hour line hauls, but again,
how are you gonna unload 100 trucks at night?
And could you let him answer the question? Okay, give him a second. Okay.
There's not 100 vans. There's not 100 line hauls. As we said, there's 30 to 35 vans come back empty. So there's not people just, they park their vans, they do a safety and security check, and then they take their cars and park the site.
Ken, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I was talking about the semi tractor trailers from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Unloading.
Okay.
Say they have during the Christmas season, it really increases. I was just wondering about the numbers at night.
Yeah, I think we've heard the numbers. Just concerned more with how they're going to, what proposals they have to mitigate light and sound, and we've asked them to come back to us at a future meeting. So I'm not sure that they're ready to respond to that right now, Ken, but certainly an issue that we've heard, throughout this meeting. Okay, I'm not trying to put them over. I just don't think we have an answer for it yet.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see anyone else's hand up. Is there anyone else who wants to speak from the public? Okay. Any follow-up comments from the board?
We do have a couple hand up. I see Todd Alexander's hand up.
Sorry, Todd, I missed you. Oh, yeah, there you
That's
are.
okay, Mr. Chairman, Todd Alexander for Fay Mountain Drive. And I just want to make it clear, I'm here as a resident of the town, excuse me, and not as a representative of any of the boards that I'm on in town. But I just wanted to say that I think this is a great reuse of the project, and I'm hopeful and confident that the applicant will be able to address the concerns that they heard from some of the abutters this evening. But I do think that this is again, a great revenue excuse me, revenue generator for the town. And I think I'm hopeful that all parties will be able to work it out. So that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, did I miss anyone else? I don't. Again, we'll all have future meetings where we can, have a chance to speak, but I want to give everyone a chance tonight that wants to speak. Okay, I don't see anyone else, so let me just go back to Bill Linnane. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bill Linnane, 22 Smith Street. There were a lot of things here brought up is there, as you go through the process, is there some kind of a table that's listed what the topic was and a table that says what the solution is? So we, the residents, can see and it doesn't get lost as minutia as we go along?
Well, there'll be minutes on the meeting, Bill, but certainly, we're cataloging all of these issues, and we'll expect, responses at future meetings. And then some of those responses will be written into any decision. So
Okay.
I think the decision will be available.
Yeah, minutes sometimes are good, but maybe a table just so that we can see the specific ones we want and see what their answers. I know it'll come through, but it's just easier to look than scanning through a whole bunch of meeting notes. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a comment, the issues, we've been taking copious notes here. We see that the comments fall into a couple major categories. We would probably, in our response, identify the question or the concern, and then right under that, provide our response. So there'll be a issue response, so that it will be a logical approach.
Yeah. So I think maybe something we could look at as a board and a department, and I haven't talked to Jim or Kristen about this, is as we put all of these documents up for, on the planning board website, maybe we can do a frequently asked question kind of thing where some of these, pervasive issues are posted and responded to so that people can see, how we're proposing to deal with it. So that might be one way to do it. Let's brainstorm a solution there so that, people can really get the answers they're looking for quickly.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to put together a list. I have 2 pages of items. I'm happy to put together a list, send it to Bob Buckley, and ask him to provide responses for each of those items. And if any of those items, and I'll provide it to the board at the same time, if anything's been missed or redundant, we can either make sure that they're included or consolidated where appropriate, and then bring that list up at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We've been at this for a while, so I'm going to move on and remind everybody that we will have additional meetings where people can address their concerns, and hopefully we'll get everybody satisfied, or at least find a resolution as best we can. So I think that's it, unless anyone on the board or anyone else has commentary. I would make a motion to continue the public hearing. And are we going to go to April 27th? Is that okay? Make a motion to continue the public hearing on 4400 Computer Drive to April 27th at 6:30.
Second that, Mark.
I heard Jim Ball first, so thank you, Jim. Any discussion of the motion? I'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Peter?
Yes, to extend.
Tim?
Yes.
Hazel?
Yes.
Jim Ball?
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor of continuing the public hearing. Thank you very much for your time and coming in, and thank you to the members of the public for your attentiveness, and we will hopefully have some answers to these questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for your time and consideration. I think that we'll be able to show that the proposed operations will be much better than existing operations. But as I said in the beginning, it's up to us to show you, and we have our assignments.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody that's leaving and move on to the next agenda item, which is endorsement of the climate action plan. Jim Robbins, I'm going to turn it to you to remind, give a brief summary of where we are in this process and what the next steps are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as most of you probably know, the Climate Action Task Force has provided for you Climate Action Task Force plan to review, and the selectmen have requested certain departments to weigh in and make a recommendation to them because they will be returning to town meeting at our annual spring town meeting, which this year is May 15th, to report back to the town meeting voters. The selectmen were charged with evaluating, putting together a climate action task force and creating a task force plan, which has been provided for us to review. The selectmen asked that we make a recommendation regarding that. This has also been reviewed by the Finance Committee, the School Department, the EDC, and now the Planning Board. Your recommendation is advisory only. It's to help the Board of Selectmen make a recommendation to town meeting. The plan requires no specific actions, so there are no regulatory changes to our zoning or to any of our local regulations. There will be recommendations in the future, and the plan is used as an outreach tool to the public and local businesses. EDC heard this last week and have decided that they want to hold a business forum in the future before they make any recommendation to the town. The planning board can certainly make their own recommendation. I'm just reporting that out since the EDC has me as a member that sits on the EDC and advising the planning board. So that's just simply stating the facts. The reason that the selectmen are asking you to provide them with responses because they have to be ready for town meeting. That's the only reason, but they do need a response.
Any questions from the board on Jim's comments or the plan itself?
I have a couple of comments, Mark.
Sure, Tim, go ahead.
So I wanted to say, just to bring the board update, since Jim mentioned the other groups, the school board voted unanimously to offer support for it. The advisory finance committee also voted 8-0 tonight to support the plan, and I'm going to make a motion in a moment to ask the planning board to support the plan. With regard to the EDC, the Climate Action Task Force looks at that as great news, undertaking this study. One of the key strategies in both the climate and sustainability portion of the master plan and in the climate action plan is outreach to our business community. So the idea that we study and get the opinion of our business community, which is not monolithic, I might add, right? So we have, if not Fortune 100, Fortune 500 kinds of brands in town, large institutions, and a number of small businesses that will be affected by the actions the state may take in the future, equally to residents, and small businesses may not be in a position to afford changes to their building envelope or their heating and cooling systems any better than residents on fixed income. So I would just ask the board to remind, a couple of points that Jim said. One, this is non-binding. Two, the substance of the plan is written, doesn't at this time ask the community to spend $1, nor does it really obligate either the business community or the residential community to take some action. It does outline a set of goals and strategies, each of which have cost burdens, whether to the municipality or the individual property owner. And before any of those strategies or plans would be implemented, they would follow the normal course of town governance up to and including, a town meeting vote if we were to appropriate money for something, or a bylaw change that would be considered by this committee. So they are really a set of recommendations, and we've had a considerable listening period, kind of tracked our work along with the 4 key boards and committees as well as the public, and have tried to, we've revised the document now twice, specifically in some areas related to zoning and to building electrification, to more properly reflect what we think the future will be. And I would say that was to soften some language. So those are the comments I would make. I'd like to answer any questions by other board members before making the motion, but I have a motion ready.
Great.
Thank you.
So let me just turn to the rest of the board. Hazel, any questions, comments? Jim Ball, anything? Peter?
Not at this moment, thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything else, Tim. So if you're ready to make a motion, please proceed.
Thanks. So I'd like to make the motion that the planning board recommends that the Board of Selectmen adopt the 2021 Climate Action Plan and take the necessary next steps to begin implementation.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, you have a couple hands up.
Well, this is not a public hearing, so I'm not sure I have to. I'll address that. Okay, Pat, you have your hand up. Did you have a question about the climate action plan that maybe Tim can answer for you? Okay, Pat, I think maybe his hand was up from before. So Chris Egan, do you have a hand up for this issue?
I did, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Chris Egan, Caruth Capital, 116 Flanders Road. Hello, planning board. Nice to see you. If it's non-binding, why do you need a?
I'm sorry?
Couldn't hear the whole.
If it's non-binding, why do you need a vote?
Because we're providing a directional document to the town, much like the master plan, to help guide how the town responds to particularly state legislation that's going to affect private property owners in the town. So we're looking for, there is no requirement of a vote here or an endorsement. So I guess maybe that's the best answer to your question. None's required. The board can, stay silent on this. It was the request of the Board of Selectmen to solicit input from the four groups that Jim Robbins mentioned. So it's in that context that we're looking at asking the planning board, the EDC, the Advisory Finance Commission, and the school board, because those particular groups are probably more involved than others in the impact of what's in the state guidelines and legislation with regard to decarbonization.
Very good. If I can ask another question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Chris, go ahead.
I know it's been a long night. I appreciate you giving me the time. It's just that I'm concerned that Westborough is trying to put itself out in front of other communities in the state, and I encourage the planning board to endorse a plan that is united with the rest of the Commonwealth, as so not to put Westborough at a competitive disadvantage to this reducing climate agenda. And those are my 2 cents.
I would just say the task force agrees with you, Mr. Egan, that, and in fact, some of the language that we changed in the, specifically in building electrification and in zoning, in the zoning recommendations involve just that we would not be acting out ahead of other communities in the state. And I would just say informally, we've begun to work with a number of towns bordering ours in Worcester County through the Central Mass Regional Planning Council, and then closer to Massachusetts or closer to Boston through the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, where we've got, Natick, Framingham, Holliston. So a number of municipalities looking to influence the state legislation and make sure that there is municipal representation at the state level in the changes to building code or changes to, other things that will impact businesses and residents and property owners. So we agree with you. We would not want to disrupt, it would be disruptive to have, a building code, an energy code, or zoning that was more restrictive or out of sync, out of alignment with neighboring communities.
Thank you, Tim. As my father would say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I'll continue to stay in touch with the climate action plan and continue to stay in the loop.
Yeah, I mean, personally, my involvement is partly defensive. I think if there's no question the state has already passed legislation, and so I look at the responsibility of the task force, and the formation of the climate action plan is really a means by which we can inform residents and businesses, our neighbors, of what's coming and try to help, you know, adopt where appropriate, defend in other cases, or ask our state representatives to mitigate actions that might be taken. So, you know, to kind of wait until everything happens, I think would put us at some risk, where this is completely new kinds of, you know, I would say incursions on private property rights. So we need to be very attentive to that. And I think the climate action plan is a means by which we can do that.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have a nice night.
Great. Thanks, Chris, for your comments. So we do have a motion before the board in support of the climate action plan. It's been seconded, and without any further discussion of the motion, I will go to a roll call vote. All those in favor, Peter?
Yes.
Hazel?
Yes, to support.
Jim?
Yes. Is it Jim or Tim?
I said Jim Ball, but sorry.
Yes.
Okay, and I heard Tim's vote yes as well, so I will vote yes, and that'll be 5-0 in favor of that recommendation. And I will instruct Jim Robbins to draft a letter of support reflecting that vote and forward it to the Board of Selectmen.
Will do.
I'm going to have to start calling it Select Board.
Thank you.
I think we're going to have to make that change soon. We'll see. All right. I would like to say thank you to the Arnolds for being so patient. This A&R plan, I believe, is next for Spring Road. Jim Robbins, I'm going to turn it over to you to give an explanation of this. Do we have a visual on this?
Yes, there's going to be an A&R here shortly.
Yeah.
I actually have Patrick Healy here, who's the engineer drawing the plan. I'm going to let Patrick explain it since he's with us tonight. I'd hate to not allow him to participate since he sat here so long.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Go ahead. Not sure if he's still with us or not. Patrick, are you muted or?
He appears unmuted.
All right, Jim, why don't you go ahead and do the explanation so that we can get this.
Sure. So Kirsten, can you enlarge it a little bit just so the board can see a little better?
I'm sorry, can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, there you are. Go ahead, Patrick.
Sorry about that. We've created this plan for the Arnold family to create 3 building lots with frontage on Spring Road. There are 2 family trusts, so you can see 2 of the lots, Lot C and Lot E, are being combined with property from the 2 trusts to create the building lots. And one of the trusts has land within a chapter. They've made application through their attorney to relieve the chapter, give the town the opportunity to purchase those 2 strips of land shown on here as parcel 3 and parcel 6. So the lots have sufficient frontage on Spring Road. They have appropriate lot area, lot width, and we ask the board to endorse it as subdivision approval not required.
Okay, so Jim, since this is an A&R, it's not governed by the subdivision rules and regulations. Is that right?
That's correct. And the 3 new lots each meet zoning. So A&R endorsement is appropriate.
So any questions from the board on the A&R? Okay, I will make a motion then to endorse the A&R plan of land at, is it 20? I can't read it. Kristen, I'm sorry, you'll have to zoom. I need the
Can you
date.
move it up a little bit?
can I just ask one quick question?
Go ahead, Hazel. You made a motion.
All right, these are up for development. They're each going to have a separate, their own septic on this and their own well.
I don't know about the well, but
yeah,
they would probably have to have their own septic, right? I don't.
Through the chair, Mr. Chairman, that's correct. They do have septic systems. We currently have 1 approval and 2 are pending.
Okay.
And they will require individual wells for water supply.
That's what I thought. They're not on town water. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I will make, if there's no other questions, I will make a motion to approve a plan of land in Westborough, Massachusetts for the Evelyn E. Arnold Revocable Trust, parcels 1, 2, and 3, and lot, I'm sorry, is it parcels 1, 4, and 5, and lot 0? All right. I just can't read that, but it's dated February 25th, 2021 by Patrick Healing. Is that right, Patrick Healing?
Mr. Chairman, it's lot D.
Okay.
Not 0.
All right. Thank you for clarifying that, Jim. So I made a motion on that.
Second that, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Jim Ball?
Yes.
Hazel?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 in favor of endorsing that plan. Jim, you're the only one to sign that, right? We don't need to come in for signatures?
That's correct. I will sign it, and Patrick, I'll be in the office tomorrow to sign this. I assume Kristen has received the feed when you dropped off the plan.
I believe she did, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
take care of it. I'll send you an email, Patrick, when I've signed it.
Okay, thank you again for being so patient, Patrick, and we'll see you again in the future. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a master plan update. Jim Robbins, why don't you give us an update on the master plan?
Yes, and as you know, we are entering into the final phase of development of the master plan, and this phase is writing the implementation plan. We approved our goals and action statements. The implementation plan now has a matrix, and the matrix is used to fill out actions necessary to bring about the goals and assign those actions in a timely fashion. And I say timely fashion is the actions will be categorized either as short-term, which is 1 to 2 years, medium range, which is 3 to 5 years, and long range, which is more than 5 years. And they're not necessarily categorized by importance, but rather which steps should be taken first, short, medium, and long range. And each of the subgroups has their own matrix to fill out. Also, as you probably remember from our last Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting, we were going to put out a survey to the public, asking them to look at the priorities of the goals and asking them some questions about the master plan, some general questions. We have the survey back from VHB. The leadership team is looking at it now. We want to get our comments back to them so they can send it out this week.
Any questions on that from the board? Jim, thanks for that.
One other thing off of the master plan, just as this isn't related to the master plan, but rather related to the action that the board took this evening regarding the Pulte special permit. You voted that the change was a de minimis change. We put together an instrument so that that can be recorded with both the town clerk and at the registry of deeds so that it's attached to the plan. If anybody ever comes along and says, what happened with the gas line improvement to Lyman Street, they'll be able to see the action that the board took. So I'm going to create an instrument that notes the action the board took tonight, attach the plan showing the line on Haskell Street, and ask the board to come in and sign it. I'll send you an email when that's ready.
Okay. All right. I think the only other thing on the, I should say, anyone have a question on that? No. Okay. And think the only other thing on the agenda is minutes. Jim Ball, I'll turn that over to you.
Yes, Mark, I believe everyone received from Kristen previously minutes for drafts on the minutes for March 9th and March 16th meetings. And I would make a motion to approve those unless there are any particular questions.
I had one question on the
On which, Hazel?
on March 9th. On the first page on building lot releases at Silver Hollow, on the third paragraph, it said, talking about Lisa Allen had no objection to lot releases. She would like the last remaining lots to not be released until the overlay is paid. What's the overlay?
Jim, you're muted.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Hazel. That's a good question. The overlay is just another term for the top course on the road.
Oh, well, okay. All right. I think she meant overlay is laid, not paid.
Paid.
Or overlay is paid.
Oh, was it paid, P-A-I-D written?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we need to change that to paid. P-A-V.
Or laid, either one.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I looked at that and I thought, wait a minute, I think she means something else. All right.
Good catch, Hazel.
Okay, wait, I just want to confirm what that change was. So is the word overlay incorrect? It should
No,
be
it's
overlaid.
Well, okay.
Well, overlay is either laid, L-A-I-D, or paved,
Correct.
P-A-V-E-D. I think either would be sufficient
Okay,
rather than paid.
yeah.
We can use complete if you want.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Too simple.
Any other changes or anything to the minutes? Jim, you were about to make a motion, I think.
All right.
I move that we approve with the minor adjustment Hazel mentioned, the minutes for 9/16 and 9/9. I'm sorry, March 16th and March 9th.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on that then. All those in favor of approving those minutes as amended, all those in favor of Jim's motion. Tim Kaler, how do you vote?
Yes.
Peter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Jim Ball, how do you vote?
Yes.
Hazel, how do you vote?
Yes.
Right, okay.
I vote yes as well. That's 5-0.
Apparently Siri votes yes as well.
Right.
All right. I think that's everything on the agenda. Am I missing anything, Jim, Kristen?
No, just to go ahead, Kristen.
No, I just confirmed that that's everything that I can see.
Right. Thank you. And so for the next meeting, the continuation of the hearing for 4400 Computer Drive, I'll get you a list of the topics that were discussed this evening, send it to the board and send it to the applicant for discussion.
Great. All right.
And that's been moved to the 27th.
27th
Yes.
at 6:30. Yep.
Right. Would you like a motion to adjourn,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
A motion to adjourn with my compliments for running a long and complicated meeting.
Oh, thank you, Tim.
I will second that.
All right. All those in favor, just speak up.
Yes.
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 5-0 in favor of adjournment. Thank you
You
so
did a
much.
great job, Mark. You did a
Well,
great
I
job
appreciate
tonight.
that, but thank you all for, your patience and
Good job, Mark.
hanging in there tonight. So we'll see you in a few weeks, and thank you again for moving the meeting. I appreciate that. It'll make my my trip a little easier to
Have a nice vacation.
Yeah, have a nice
Yes,
leave.
time.
Good luck on the college search.
Yeah, I get to go see where all my money's going. So.